Welcome here to an all-new broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You're hanging out with us inside of the Cafe Kubal studios where sports meets that thing called life. Always happy to have you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location that just had its one-year anniversary. Go and celebrate and support local in North Syracuse at that location and all of their locations. And if you're out of town like my guy Jay Bird over here, you can go to cafekubal.com and you can get all of their awesome, wonderful things there. You know that we've decked out the studio in a special way. We got our Q's 315 pillows here. We also have this little doozy celebrating where I started my business. And we are heading right toward our 10-year anniversary of my business in the middle of this month. Very excited for that. And so a big thanks to Witty Wicks, as we've already lit a candle in the studio to celebrate that 10-year birthday. So with that being said, all throughout today's broadcast, it is college realignment talk. You know that I've done it here on the show. We got the map out. I started circling things, saying what should happen, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. In a week from when we released that, which you can go see on our youtube.com/Wake Up Call DT channel. Make sure to click subscribe. We are now here with Jason Lucas, good friend of mine, who is always with us to talk about all different sports, including the college realm. So with that being said, Mr. Jason Lucas, who has been behind the scenes in PR with teams, including the Orlando Predators most recently, and has also been in the media world, he knows multiple angles to this conversation, and that's why I'm happy to have him here. Jay Bird, how we doing?
Hey, good, man. 97,000 degrees here in Florida today. We're gearing up for the fall, and I don't know what conference you'll be in or I'll be in or whatever, but hopefully we'll see you sometime this season.
Yeah, it's very crazy here to take a look at this. I grew up in Syracuse, New York. Obviously, I'm here in central and upstate New York. I wore this shirt for you today. Jason's down in Florida in the second home of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which is the great state of Florida, and a lot of stuff that we get to do in Orlando, where UCF calls home, and I believe is now the biggest campus in America because they have the downtown campus. Are they there yet?
Oh, yeah. Per capita students way over 70,000 these days. It's the largest student population, I think, even on campus now in America. So the dorm rooms and all that's crazy.
And I wore this shirt for you, so I want the world to see it. It says, "We know each other. He's a friend." So, because that's how Jason and I met. So this is Thor's thing in Thor Ragnarok when Hulk comes out and they're supposed to be fighting each other, and everybody thinks they'll be scared, and he goes, "Yes!" And they're like, "Why is he cheering?" And he's like, "We know each other. He's a friend from work." So that's exactly how I feel about Jay Bird. We met when I was covering the Florida Tuskers, and he was working in their public relations. So I'm very happy to be here with you after, wow, it's been 12 years that we've known.
12 years since Tuskers, yeah.
12 years. And in the last 12 years, there's been not a lot of movement in college athletics.
Not a whole lot.
Yeah, I'm kidding. So, I mean, the Big East took the name in. The Catholic Seven ran away with the logo and the name. They became everything but football. The American Athletic Conference was born out of having Cincinnati, South Florida, and UConn and Temple coming back in with Steve Adazio at the time. We saw Conference USA has been plucked from 8 million times. That's how you build a conference, is to take it from Conference USA. And then the American had to rebuild through Conference USA, who had to rebuild from there. And then what they rebuilt with, now the Americans taking again. The SunBelt is taking some of it. Conference USA is losing 9. Oklahoma, Texas, USC, UCLA. There's only a few things that have happened in the last decade. And in the last, 4 or 5 months, the world has drastically changed. You thought it was the pandemic, NIL, and the transfer portal. No, the NCAA president stepping down. He admitted in 2020 he has no control over college football. So if I was a player, I would have never sat out. Thank you. And then on top of all of that, we have realignment on the pandemic, on NIL, on the transfer portal. We're now forming mega conferences. Jason Lucas, where do you want to start? Because it's just such an uneventful thing to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can start here at home, and how excited UCF is to be going into its last season of the American, and and going forward into the Big 12 starting next season. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the Big 12 and looking at the fact that, they obviously have the opportunity to join the Big 12. When you and I did a show about this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm not going to belabor the point, just make it clear. I think it's hilarious that the Big 12 is so excited to have UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston when I feel like they and the rest of the country were laughing at these three schools going, well, they're just chumps. They're not a power. And then they built them in order to create the power. And they've been stealing their coaches, trying to every single season pretty much. Tom Herman left Houston. We saw in UCF, Scott Frost obviously leave, and Josh Heupel. And in Cincinnati, Luke Fickell is still there. Tommy Tuberville went and became somebody who ran for public office, mind you. So a lot of interesting things that have happened here. So go back and watch that video. We'll share it so that you can go back and see it. But the giant point of that was how laughable it is that those three schools meant nothing to the world, and now they mean everything to the Big 12. So let's start at home. UCF, one more season in all sports inside of the American Athletic Conference. The American Athletic is where UCF came and was a small fry, right? And they're leaving a large fry, right? The one that falls out is at the bottom of the bag, and that you're so happy you have that ketchup packet for. UCF became the big fry, and they can thank the American for it, and the American can thank their portfolio for UCF. They helped each other mutually, and after almost a decade, they're going to part ways. So your thoughts?
Yeah, it's been a good run. Been a good run in the American. Won the thing 4 dang times, and have had some superstar players come through, some big NFL guys. It's been a great time to be a UCF fan. It's been a great time to start being a fan if you're somebody that lives here in Orlando and just decided to, hey, I'm going to be a UCF fan now. It's been a good bandwagon to be on, and hopefully it continues to be so as we move into the Big 12 and get even bigger and better players.
Yeah, and that's the thing about, taking a look at the Big 12 is, okay, so they made this decision. Now the Big 12 is where realignment this time around, 10 years later from everything that happened in 2012, on this 10-year anniversary where you've seen the Wild West be all over the place again, truly, and we'll get to that with the Big 10 in a little bit. But the Big 12, as of right now, they've stayed in the South, right? They cross, and you can go back and watch the realignment map broadcast that I did on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And when I show you the SEC map and the Big 12 map, they cross each other, and they have that sweet spot area, but the Big 12 is extended out a little bit. What are your thoughts on what I had spoken about months ago? The Big 12 could have died. The Big 12 went, because that's the thing about the SEC. The SEC didn't take from the Big 12. They cut off their head. They cut the head off the snake. They took Oklahoma. They took Texas. They took their two most notable institutions. And remember, back in the day when these TV deals and networks and all this stuff wasn't being talked about, the Longhorns had a network before the conferences got these networks. Yeah. So let's go to Oklahoma and Texas first. And I'd love to get your thoughts on the fact that the SEC didn't make a move in realignment. They cut off the head of the Big 12 and left the body laying in a desert in the South. And it's still alive, and we'll discuss it. But what are your thoughts on the fact that the SEC just didn't take? They stripped them of their identity.
Yeah, I think it makes the SEC right off the bat like the most powerful conference there is. Obviously, there's the most money there.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma, that program's perennial top 10 program in football, and obviously just won a softball national championship, and was very close in baseball too. So it's a great school to have in there. Texas, money-wise, Texas is huge. So two biggest money programs, I'd say, in the Big 12, and they're gone now. Now they're going to the SEC where, everybody else has the money they have. Everybody else has the resources they have. Everybody else they're on that level playing field with them. So it's going to be tougher for them to compete. We've joked about Texas and how they're already like a 6-6 team in the Big 12 football wise. And now they're going to be faced with even more challenges every week as far as the SEC goes in football. So it'll be rough for them, I think. And I think Oklahoma will fare pretty well and continue to be a good top 10, 15 program in football.
Well, and here's the thing. We'll talk about the moves that have already happened, and then we'll talk about the ones that could happen. So, taking a look at the moves that have already come to fruition as we look at this college realignment thing inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora here in the Cafe Q Ball studios. So you cut off the head of the Big 12. You leave the Big 12's body vulnerable. I thought, and the article that I had written had Kansas State, Kansas, and Oregon State going to the Pac 12, making it the Pac 15. I had the American, who had relocated their headquarters to Irving, Texas during the pandemic, that they would take what they already had at the time with SMU and Houston, and that they would add Baylor, Texas Tech, and TCU, who Mike Oresco already had a relationship with when he was wooing TCU to the Big East before Syracuse, Pitt, Louisville, and Notre Dame decided to leave. So that's what I saw happening. The Pac-15, the American adding, and then I saw West Virginia going to the ACC, and I saw Iowa State joining Iowa in the Big Ten to put that rivalry in conference, and then the Big Ten staying at 14 would gain Iowa State, lose Maryland, and Maryland would go back to the ACC. So in that case, I saw the other Power Four plus what I consider to be a power conference, the American Athletic. They were all going to get something from the Big 12. The Pac-12 was going to grow. The Big Ten was going to have the same amount of schools. The ACC was going to gain something. The American was going to gain something, and the SEC had already gained Oklahoma and Texas. That didn't happen. Do you feel that when we look back on this could be one of the greatest mistakes, that the Big 12 was not rated like I thought it could have been? And what do you think about the model that I had where each conference would have gained something from the Big 12?
Yeah, I mean, I thought the Big 12 was in big trouble there, and I really thought the American was going to swoop in and take everybody, and the American was going to become finally in the Power Five just by itself. And I know that, like, we were hoping that was going to happen at one point. So now, I mean, you end up with, the Big 12 is looking at like Colorado, Utah, schools like that out west to come and be a part of this Big 12, and it's going to be even bigger than 12 at this point. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next few weeks, because it sounds like a lot of the movement is going to be happening very soon, and we should be hearing about it at any point.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, getting to a place right now where we're anticipating the movement, right? We're waiting upon it, but we're anticipating that something could be happening. In the meantime, as the Big 12 tries to figure things out, the Pac-12, which I think could have taken from the Big 12, like I said, and become the Pac-15, they've now had an assault on them where the Big 10 did what the SEC did. They didn't take two teams. They cut off the head of the Big 12, and they took USC and UCLA. They're notable programs. Not to take away from Oregon and the fact that they have 400 different uniform choices, thanks to Phil Knight, or the fact that Stanford, obviously, to some people can be an Ivy League school. I'm not taking away from any of that, but I'm stating an obvious fact. The Pac-12, which I call the WAC-12, and I have for a while, has no relevancy in college football. They're not relevant in the college football playoff. They've been in it one time with Washington. They did nothing. They got embarrassed by Alabama. So I don't want to hear anybody go, well, Cincinnati. Yeah, well, Washington looked worse than Cincinnati. At least Cincinnati contested something for a good portion. So looking at the WAC-12 and where they have been, seeing USC and UCLA go to the Big Ten cuts off their head, takes a page out of the SEC book and says, okay, we're going to take two schools. We're going to rip their heads off. But in this case, Jay, what do you think about the move, number one? And number two, this one, unlike the SEC one, makes no geographical sense. It's an over 2,000-mile trek in order to have some of these games happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. Is the travel is number one. And I'd say number two, a very close second, your fan base is having to wake up on the West Coast at 8:50 a.m. to wake up and turn the TV on and catch the 9 o'clock start, which, when I used to live in Vegas, I had to do that for UCF. We played a couple of noon games the season I was there, and I had to get up at 10 minutes till and just kind of saunter out the living room and turn the TV on, put the coffee on, and then, we were already kicking off. It's really, I mean, it's crazy to think that you're going to have teams from California playing teams from Pennsylvania at 9 o'clock in the morning. And that's going to be interesting for their fan base. I think, they're going to have some really upset people with that. And then, I mean, obviously, when the teams from East go to West, then those games are going to be starting at 9, 10 o'clock at night sometimes.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, the dynamic of that. I mean, for UCF, nobody's within like 1,000 miles of us in the Big 12 either. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You take a look at this and you say to yourself, okay, this is, these moves are being made for money. They're being made in order to, make sure that schools are going to consistently get richer. But at what point do we say it's excessive? At what point? Now, the Pac-12 is in a place right now where they're vulnerable, right, because they have to work out a new deal. So these teams are free to move as they want to. The ACC is in a different place because the ACC has the grant of rights, which I think it runs through like 2036. I believe I was sitting in the room when that happened with the ACC network and all that. So we know that there's a protection there, and there's a move we talked about off the air that I told you I'm going to give you a little thought on why I think the SEC is sitting and waiting, because I think that there's a mistake move that the ACC could make, not thinking of it. And like I tell people, I don't play chess, I play checkers, and I'm all about the double move. And you don't know that as a king, I could jump backwards and I could jump my own man. So I'm notorious for the triple jump, and I think the SEC is getting ready to do one of these things. But, looking at the Big Ten and what they're doing right now, to have to play games at 9 a.m. and then they have to play games at 9 p.m., I mean, this is a really weird world. You're going to be crossing time zones. You're going to have teams that are jet lagged on a normal basis. And you brought up a great point. If I'm Penn State and I have to go play USC, if I do that once a year, I'm doing that in January. I'm doing that at the Rose Bowl. I'm not doing that in November. I'm not doing it in December. I'm not doing it multiple times. What if I'm Penn State and I got to play UCLA and I got to play USC? Right? And when you look at the map and you go back and you watch that video, the Big Ten has the Midwest, and they have this cloud that moves toward the Atlantic Coast Conference and moves down and kind of touches the SEC, but it's right there in the middle of the country. And then you have these two outliers that are off to the side. It's great for money for USC and UCLA, and it's great for brand of the Big Ten. But here's the thing. I think it helps the Big Ten more than it helps USC and UCLA, because I think it's more of a hassle for them. What are your thoughts on it? Because the Big Ten doesn't lose in any way, shape, or form in this. But if I'm a coach, and I know the coaches in the American Athletic Conference, they're willing to play on Thursday and Friday to be on TV, right? And we've heard the coaches complain. I got to play on Thursday, and then I got to play the next week. When these other coaches, I play on Saturday, I play on Thursday, I don't have a full week like I would in another conference. Well, guess what? If you're a coach here and you're playing and you're finishing a game at midnight, and then you're playing another game in the morning, and you have some morning games and you have afternoon games, and then you have these really late nighttime games, and people are watching a Penn State game that's kicking off on the West Coast. It's not going to end on the East Coast until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning. The Big Ten won, but what do you think about USC and UCLA, and what does this do to the coaching model of how you have to schedule your practices, your walkthroughs, and just overall getting a team prepared, where you're saying, all right, guys, this week we're playing at 9 p.m., next week we're playing at 9 a.m. Be ready for that.
Yeah, the first guy I think of is Lincoln Riley, who just, willingly left his job at Oklahoma to go out to SC, and everybody was like, well, he's just trying to avoid the SEC and not have that tough competition, and now he's going to have to deal with, well, every road trip is a good 2,000 miles, and, also on the East Coast coming to West Coast, people don't understand how long of a damn day that is. When we came from Florida, we played out in Sacramento, or we came from Florida and we played out in Vegas, and the game started at 8 p.m. Vegas time or Sacramento time. That's a long day, because your East Coast brain wakes up at like 5 in the morning. So you're awake at 5 in the morning. Whole day passes. You have breakfast with the team. You have a little meeting, you have lunch with the team, another maybe meeting or two, and you have dinner at like 5:30. I'm ready for bed, bro. Okay, let's go to bed. No, this is game time.
Yeah.
So it becomes very interesting to try to get through it. We lost the game in Sacramento, I think, just due to fatigue. At the end of the game, it was, 3 a.m. to us. So it gets really rough as the night goes on. And, it'll be very interesting to see those. And I think you'll also hear those excuses coming out from the East Coast teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, no matter what you want to say about realignment, the SEC has stayed true to being where they are. And they say, well, Dan, it's the Southeast, it's the Southeastern Conference. And okay, but they've stayed in the South, right? They're in Oklahoma now as of 2025, if not, I think sooner, but 2025 right now. Yeah. They're in Oklahoma. They're in Texas with Texas and Texas A&M, right? They're in Louisiana with LSU. They're in Florida with Florida. They have Alabama and Auburn in Alabama. They have Arkansas. They have Mississippi, Mississippi State and Ole Miss. So, and then they have Kentucky when you come up a little bit. They've stayed true. And what I find really interesting, and I did it on the map, is when you look at the Southeastern Conference, the best conference in all of sports, we can argue. Now, for basketball, maybe not, but overall with money and network and the way that things are going in realignment, the SEC, you can argue the SEC is the strongest college football conference without Oklahoma and Texas. Yeah. So you have their model, right, of the country in the area that they take up. If you look at the American Athletic, who will, as of next year, have 14 member schools for football, and you look at the SunBelt, who as of next year will have 14 member schools in football, who have both taken from Conference USA. We saw a bunch of teams. We saw 6 teams go to the American. 3 of them are going to the SunBelt. They'll both have 14, which is the same as the ACC, mind you. And look at where they are. The American Athletic Conference, the majority of their footprint is in the SEC area. The majority of the SunBelt is in the SEC area. They're following the model, and why I think the SunBelt and the American are smart, and kudos to their commissioner and kudos to their front office, is that if the SEC does it right, you're focusing on the same states and the same TV markets as the SEC, which I think is going to help the American and the SunBelt, which nobody's talking about because everybody wants to talk about what's going to happen to the Pac-12. But let's talk about reality here. There's 3 conferences that are in the same area, and the American and the SunBelt are with the SEC on that. And I think it's great to follow that model, those TV markets, and to have those states in your favor. Because remember, the American's gaining Alabama viewership now, right? And they're deepening their ties to North Carolina and one of the biggest growing cities in America, in Charlotte. So there's a lot to be said about the American and the SunBelt following suit with the SEC and going after the same region.
Yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am for Florida Atlantic to be in the American, to finally, because they've come from Division II. I remember going to see them play Colgate and Slippery Rock, in the playoffs when they were in Division II or 1AA, whatever it was back then. Crazy to think how far they've come. They've taken those steps like UCF and come up. So I'm excited for them to be in the American. And also, man, with the SEC, man, it's such a top-heavy conference. Alabama, obviously, right at the top of that conference every year. You got to fight Alabama. You got to fight Georgia. Florida's been pretty good year in and year out. They had a down year last year. Yeah. Tennessee, I think, is on the upswing with Josh Heupel. But, other than that, them, maybe LSU, the rest of the conference is kind of 6-6 in that area, and then you got Vanderbilt there at the bottom as always. The SEC is, man, it's actually just a huge top-heavy conference.
Yeah, and that's the thing about the SEC is if you look at them and what they're becoming, you look at their conference and you say Alabama's always, when we talk about football, Alabama's always there. Auburn, if they fall for a couple of years, they come back. They go back and forth every 2-3 years. They're back in it again. So that's that story. Florida is hopefully going to find its way back up. Dan Mullen was supposed to be the sign of better times. He did some good things. Then they dipped. And so, so he was in Mississippi and now he's, out of there and he's out of Florida. So, Florida's waiting to come back up. Georgia, with Kirby Smart, is doing what they need to do. Texas A&M under Jimbo Fisher. I don't understand this whole like Jimbo better do something or we're going to fire him or he's on the hot seat. Jimbo Fisher just beat Alabama. Shut your mouth and enjoy it. The SEC are some ungrateful people.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
Les Miles got fired for having an 81% winning percentage because he lost 3 games in a row for the first time that it happened in LSU in like 40 years. It's like, dude, seriously, an 81% winning percentage? He could coach at Syracuse until he's 152 years old if that was the case. So, LSU will be finding its way back up because, now they have Brian Kelly. We'll see if he can do it outside of Notre Dame. Can he hang in the SEC?
They got Big Hank.
Well, and yeah, they do. They got Cortez.
Big Hank's over there, wide receivers.
My belief, shout out to Cortez Hankton, I congratulated him, and you and I both got to be around him with the Tuskers.
Yeah.
And he also played for the Jags. Yeah. My belief is that Brian Kelly has 3 years. Okay? Arkansas has found its way back up. Kentucky's done some good things, right? So there's relevancy. Then there's like Missouri there's no anything. Vanderbilt, do they have sports? And so, there's people within the SEC that don't make sense there, but you look at them and you look at if a couple of years ago, you have Alabama, Georgia, Auburn, Florida was getting better, LSU was there at 5, and then you look at Oklahoma coming in. I think Texas is going to be 6-6. So now you have 6 teams that have relevancy here of the 16 that you're going to have. So I would imagine that they want to make a couple more moves. And I really believe that Clemson and Florida State are the next 2 most logical pieces to do because Clemson's rival, South Carolina, is in the SEC. And Florida State's rival, Florida, is in the SEC. Yeah. And people are talking about this, Jay, that we might do away with rivalry week. And we may not have this anymore because conferences are getting too big. How do you keep rivalry week? How do you take care of it and make it sustainable? By taking the rivals and putting them in your conference.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about all you can do. I mean, Florida State, Miami, Florida, they all have like rotated playing each other. Florida State, Florida always plays each other. Florida State, Miami always plays each other. Florida, Miami sometimes, man, I don't know. Other than putting them in the same conference, I mean, you've got to make it happen because the fans all love that game. That's all the number one game. They love playing each other. Obviously, UCF is losing South Florida with the move. So that's been a rivalry that's gone on the last 10, 15 years or so and become heated.
Who's going to be UCF's rival?
Cincy, I think. We're bringing them with us, I guess.
Well, and I was looking at the Big 12 and I was saying West Virginia and Cincinnati, they can have something. But I'm looking at UCF and I'm saying to myself, okay, who can they really dig in with? And what happens to South Florida? Because they haven't been good for a while now since everybody wants to dog Willie Taggart for giving him a year and a half at Florida State with a bunch of guys. Like he said, he didn't know if they wanted to be in the locker room. Willie and I talked about that. He went to Oregon. I believe he was 8-4 in his only season there. He brought South Florida to life, mind you, recruited well, made them a sustainable program, good enough that Oregon wanted him. Then he went to Florida State. Now he's at FAU. This is not a Willie Taggart problem. And South Florida owes Willie Taggart everything for making them notable. You're a UCF guy. What happens to South Florida now that their rival is out of conference and they have no relevancy? Does South Florida become the Americans' UConn now?
Yeah. It's kind of, I mean, back in the early days, I'm going to take you back to like 2004, 5-ish. UCF was in their first conference in the Mid-American Conference. Mm-hmm. And a lady by the name of Judy Genshaft was the president of South Florida, and she blocked a move from UCF to the Big East. And when that happened, I mean, the gloves came off because UCF was like, oh, okay, so you're going to block us from moving up with you? We would like to be here with you. And let's move up together. Let's go to the Big 12 together. Let's go to the ACC together, whatever it would be. Yeah. They said, nope, stay down there, little brother. And now UCF has beaten them every year since 2017 in football and gone, from here, to here in USF, I mean, they win like 1 or 2 games a year in football now, and they've become like a laughing stock of the American Conference. And I think the future is a little brighter there. They have a good coach, they have a good quarterback, and at least 1 or 2 good receivers there.
Yeah,
they might be able to be a little better this year, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. I know they're talking about building a new stadium now. So maybe finally being on campus will help their attendance, which has been atrocious at Raymond James. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting to see what happens with them.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You take a look at this. I mean, it's been awful, right? It's been awful for South Florida. And you bring in a coach and you have the opportunity, you're right, he has the Clemson connection. And so your hope is that was going to provide, a future for them. The good thing about South Florida is that if you're a head coach there, you have time, right? Willie had time. And I think, now you have time in South Florida. I think being the head coach of South Florida gives you that, something that college football coaches don't have in the SEC. You don't have time. And now I think that there is this, that's a good part of being in South Florida, that you have time to build, you have time to grow, you have time to figure things out. And hopefully that'll work in their favor. But I'm looking at this saying, okay, well, FAU's there now in the American, will be there after a season. So that could be a good thing, right? North and South Florida. But in the world of UCF, they're now in a place where it's like, okay, well, now you're fighting with the big boys, but it's like, wait a second. They don't have Oklahoma. They don't have Texas. They know how to play Cincinnati. They know how to go up against Houston. So you have these. You got BYU, which they've had to tussle with before. But if you're UCF and you're the Big 12 right now, I think the Big 12 has to keep expanding, because I don't know how great of an argument the Big 12 has right now to say that they're exponentially better than the American by taking 3 of the American's teams and losing Oklahoma and Texas. Where is the relevancy? Is it Oklahoma State, who has been up and down? It's not Kansas. It's not Kansas State. But is it Baylor? Who's the darling of the Big 12 right now? Who's the torchbearer that UCF can turn around and say, well, hey, we're in a better conference because of X? Who's X?
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma State's probably the cream of that crop that's going to be left. That was a Big 12 school. Expansion-wise, I would love to see Memphis come in. Memphis is a school that nobody ever talks about, but like they're definitely, I mean, they've been tops in basketball, football. They went to a New Year's Six Bowl a couple years ago. Their basketball team with Penny Hardaway as the head coach, perennially good. Yeah. So I don't see why Memphis is never in these talks to move up. That would be somebody I'd love to see in the Big 12 with us, and that could be a number one rival for us for sure too.
I appreciate your comment, but no more poaching of the American. So we're gonna take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We're inside of the Cafe Cubal Studios, smelling good, looking good, feeling good. We're here with Jason Lucas for our College Realignment show. Jay Bird coming here with us, been on both sides of the coin, inside of an organization, and when it comes to the sports world and helping them in the public relations side, and then also being on the media side. So we'll have more coming up here. We've just begun our realignment talk, so follow back with us.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cubal needs. Cafe Cubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life. We are inside of the Cafe Cubal studios talking about college realignment here with Jason Lucas. And, of course, Cafe Cubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street in Syracuse, as well as 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, where they just had their one-year anniversary. And I got to celebrate my G-Mama's Remembrance Day with a special video with my mom. Thank you all for making that one of the best videos, most watched videos we've ever had. So a big shout out. I know G-Mama appreciates it. And I know she'd say, where's everybody else? Tell them to come watch it. So go back and see that on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, corner Route 11 in Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse for Cafe Cubal's drive-through. We're smelling good here with some Witty Wicks. I got to bring some of these outside. I got to get the citronella ones because the skeeters are always hanging out here in Syracuse. So we need to get rid of all that. And, of course, we have these beautiful Syracuse pillows and 315 everything brought to you from Witty Wicks. You can get all of your stuff by going to Township 5 in Camillus, right in front of Movie Tavern, to Witty Wicks, or go to wittywicks.com. So, with that being said, Jason was talking about expanding the Big 12 to include Memphis. I say no, because they're in the American, and I'm keeping them in my American Athletic Conference. That conference has been through enough, okay? It's like they've seen enough. They don't need any more. They've been through a million stages of realignment, but I think the American could have rated, like I said in my original thought process, when Oklahoma and Texas were gone, I thought the American had prime opportunity to take from the conference that's been threatening to take from them and eventually did, because back in 2019, it was, are they taking UCF? Are they taking Memphis? They take it 5. Are they taking 3? And they didn't take any with Bob Bowlesby there as the commissioner. So I want to go back to that in the Big 12 and where things are at right now. Do you think the American missed a giant opportunity? And we don't know who was behind closed doors in those rooms when Oklahoma and Texas went away, and if the American tried to do this. But, Jay, the Big 12 has been a cloud over the American for at least the last 3 years, if not longer. They've just taken 3 schools. Did the American miss something?
Oh, my God, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Bob Bowlesby was over there across the street from where, the Big 12 and the American right there across the street from each other in Texas. Bob Bowlesby was over there. There's just nothing to see here. It's exploding behind him. Oklahoma and Texas are leaving. It was exploding. It was like, Oklahoma State's coming to the American. Kansas State's coming to the American. Let's go. American flag. Hey, wait a minute. What happened?
Yeah.
What happened? Wait a minute. Bob Bowlesby like, I did it, bro. And now
Yeah. And it's such a confusing situation because I thought that that was the Americans' way to finally bring it all back around and be like, this is what you've done to us for years, and now we're going to be the thing that kills your conference. So instead of killing your conference that's been looming over us for years, you end up losing 3 of your key members in your top 2 football schools. So the Big 12 cuts off the head of the American, the SEC cuts off the head of the Big 12, and the Big 10 cuts off the head of the Pac-12. What's the ACC doing?
Looking like Clemson's still going to kill everybody and be the class of that conference. It's kind of, you made me think about Memphis, since you mentioned that. When I met Memphis was the class of Conference USA. They couldn't be beaten in basketball. They were ridiculous in basketball. I think they even came close to winning a national championship while they were in Conference USA. They were very good. It's just crazy, man. This whole thing all started with Oklahoma and Texas, and it's just been whoosh.
Yeah.
This whole offseason. Whole offseason's been insane. To just even think that, we could be having this conversation today and tomorrow it could change.
Yeah, and that's the crazy part of all of this is the fact that, like what you just said, I mean, we've had this conversation and everything could be, by the end of the week, it could be different. Here's the thing. The Big 12 is going to be having their football kickoff, right? They're going to be having their media days. The ACC, I'll be in Charlotte for their media days a week from the time that we're speaking. And the SEC is going to have their media day. And I would imagine that you want to do – now, here's the thing. I would want to make a move because I'd want to be able to talk about it and corner the market. And with all these conferences having that like same week that they're going to be doing their media days, I would want within this next 2-week period to control the big, I would want to be the big stories. But there's another side to this that they don't do anything because they don't want the media to be involved, right? So they sit on it and they wait so that the media can ask the questions. And then, I fly home from Charlotte and then Clemson goes, we're going to the SEC. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, you know what I mean? That's ridiculous. But I think the worst action right now is inaction. And we've seen the Big 12 make moves. We've seen the Big 10 make moves. We've seen the SEC make moves. We've seen the SunBelt make moves. We've seen the American make moves. We've seen Conference USA make moves. But the Pac-12, which is now 10, has done nothing. And the ACC has done nothing. I think the worst action is inaction. And I think the ACC sitting and doing absolutely nothing right now is making me feel like instead of being the cloud, you're worried about the cloud.
We don't want to forget that the ACC did apparently shake hands with the Pac-12 and say they were going to have a joint championship game.
And that's idiotic.
Yeah, that's about all they've done.
But, and you know what? And here's the thing. Let's go back to, because this is something that I had said before USC and UCLA made their move here. Now, when Oklahoma and Texas went, I made the comment that there was going to be this world where I felt that the SEC was going to break away and form its own league, and I still feel that way. And right after, it was like 3 days after, the Big 10, the Pac-12, and the ACC formed a joint alliance. Mm-hmm. And I said that this thing to me was a joke because everybody said, what is this for? What does it mean? And people are asking me, what does it mean? And then they come out and they say, well, it's for scheduling purposes and the sharing of information. Well, the sharing of information, you can do however you want to do it. And we hear information about the conferences all the time, I guess, to share background information, but are you really going to share everything with, they're still your competitors. And two, you already schedule with them. You have the ACC Big 10 Challenge. So to say that this was for scheduling and spreading info, and it just so happened to be a couple days after the SEC got Oklahoma and Texas is BS. The joint alliance was made as a way for those three conferences to band together and say, when they break away, we need to be our own league and we need to be protected. And what they did is they left their younger brother, the Big 12, out with the anticipation that the Big 12 was going to die. And they did it.
And they did it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the joint alliance. What do you think about it? and just shed some light here on how you view the joint alliance of the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC that coincidentally was made right after the SEC got Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was more of a safety move to be like, hey, we don't want to lose our spot, like, is that next level, because there's a lot of schools coming up now. There's a lot of schools who are getting more money involved in their programs. And there's plenty of schools that have been in these conferences for years, Wake Forest, that they're not pulling their weight. And they're just kind of sitting there collecting a check. So what do you think they're going to do? Shake hands behind closed doors and be like, please, don't kick us out. Please, we've got to be here.
I love that you said don't kick us out, and that's exactly when the jersey went flying.
We got kicked out. What happened?
But it's crazy. It's so crazy and it's funny that happened because there was a show we were doing and I had a sign behind me, and the 3 times that I said something not overtly positive about Prince, the artist, it fell. And it like fell every time. And my guy Rick, who you met, who's in our fantasy football league, Rick Etienne, he was doing the show with me when it fell, and he's like, bro, stop saying bad things about Prince. Like, he's coming after you. I was like, I like Prince, but you know, still
that's Wake Forest knocking out my UCF jersey. It's black and gold.
Wake Forest is like, screw your black and gold. We're the same colors, you jerk. But but here's the thing about, you talk about that and pulling your weight and signing, and doing this behind closed doors thing. This joint alliance thing was just a joke. And I just got an email recently about the joint alliance, and it's like, hey, the joint alliance is going to be celebrating Title IX's 50-year history and yada, yada. And that's all well and good. And I appreciate that. But this joint alliance to me is a massive joke because it was obviously made to say within the Power Five, within the autonomy group, there's the SEC, the joint alliance of the Pac-12, the Big Ten, and the ACC, and then the Big 12. And here's the thing that those 3 conferences have to realize. The Big 12 didn't die, so now they're looking up at you going, hey, jerk, like, why are we not a part of your party? And let's talk about this joint alliance, because the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 banded together, and then the Big Ten cut off the head of the Pac-12. So if I'm the ACC, I'm looking at the Big Ten, and the Big Ten's got a shiv, and I'm like, they're kind of like, you're next. You know what I mean? Like, I'm waiting to be, if I'm the ACC, I'm waiting to be stabbed in the back because you just formed a joint alliance that just saw one of your alliance members rip from the other one, which started what could be the end of the Pac-12. So what is the Big Ten saying to the ACC right now?
I don't know, but I do know that I haven't heard the word alliance since like 1995 or 6, back when they had the alliance bowls, like Sugar Bowl and Orange Bowl. Yeah, those were the alliance, and then now they're what? They're what exactly? They're literally just trying to hang on.
Well, here's the thing: you talk about a loose partnership between the Pac-12 and the ACC. Well, it was a very loose, non-existent partnership between the Big Ten and the Pac-12. And this is for scheduling and to share information. Well, whatever information the Pac-12 shared with the Big Ten, I hope it wasn't monetary, because the Big Ten just took that information and smacked you in the face with it. So, if I'm the ACC right now, this loose part, so you have the SEC, the joint alliance, the Big 12 within the autonomy group. And then within the alliance of 3, you have the alliance of 2, which is really the alliance of 1. So the Big 10 is still by themselves. The Pac-12 is over there. And now 2 out of 3 members want to form a joint championship. Let me be real, ACC. You have 2 moves to make. 2. Get Notre Dame. Shout out to my niece. Shout out to my niece, Carly. So,
brushing her teeth.
Yeah. So you have 2 moves to make. Only 2. If you're the ACC, keeping Clemson and getting Notre Dame for football. Those are the only 2 big moves the ACC can make, because if the SEC cut off the head of the Big 12 and the Big Ten cut off the head of the Pac-12, and nobody's going to cut the head of the Big Ten, and nobody's going to cut the head of the ACC. The only autonomy member left is the ACC, so it's either get cut or cut, and you're not going to cut the head off of two of the conferences that have no head, and you're not going to cut the head off the SEC or the Big Ten. So the only moves that you can make are going to be moves that aren't really going to muddy any. They're not going to really shake up the water like a T-Rex would in Jurassic Park, unless you get Notre Dame or keep Clemson. The ACC, I mean, and you can tell me what your thoughts are, but the ACC to me has two plays. Keep Clemson, get Notre Dame in football. That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole deal with Notre Dame is talking them out of that bucket of money they get from NBC every year. And that's the big problem that anybody's had, getting them to commit for more than the 1 year they were in the ACC for football a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you can get them, that'd be great, because the Notre Dame, the name, notoriety, how big the program is, how big the fan base is, how much money's involved with that program. Obviously, that's a big get for whatever conference, whether it's the ACC or anybody else.
Yeah.
Because I think the only conference that could really maybe talk them in, money-wise, SEC.
And that's I think for me, Notre Dame makes the most sense in the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is surrounding them.
Yeah.
And if the Big Ten can really go to them and say, here's $100 million, here it is. We're going to do revenue sharing, but there's going to be levels, there's going to be tiers. And Notre Dame, as soon as you come into the conference, you're going to be on the top tier with Ohio State. You're going to be on the top tier with Penn State, Michigan. We're going to put y'all there, and we're going to create this system. Notre Dame can wait. Notre Dame can wait for every single chip to fall. They're in no rush, and they have a deal with NBC, I think, until 2025, 26, somewhere around there. So they have the opportunity for the next 3 years to just sit and wait. But I think the Big Ten makes the most sense for Notre Dame to go for football. But if they go for football, now this is a humiliation move, as they have put all their sports, except for football, in the ACC, revenue shared with the ACC, gotten money for all their other sports, plus gotten 100% of their NBC money, and then they go, yeah, we're going to go to the Big Ten. Thanks for bringing us to dinner. Thanks for buying us stuff. Thanks for getting us the limo. Thanks for dressing up, but we're going to go sleep with the other guy. And that's where we're at right now. The Big Ten has a better play to get Notre Dame, and if and when they do, the ACC is going to be the guy that has been in the friend zone, taking you to dinner for 6 months, spending money on you, putting you on their jet and flying you all around just to find out that you're having a baby by the Big Ten.
That sounds like a personal thing there, Dan. You sound like you've been there.
Ain't nobody having my babies anywhere. I'm fine.
That sounds about right. So, hello, welcome back.
Hey, Carly.
Can you say hi to Dan?
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Carly. To everybody out there, that is my niece. What'd you say?
My name is Telly Green.
Telly Green?
Yeah, you ever watch the Big City Greens?
I haven't. She changed her name to Telly Green?
She does them all day long.
Okay.
Big City Greens.
Fair enough.
She wanted to come say what's up.
Yeah. And looking at the world that we live in today, though, and it's not, I mean, listen, I've had some crazy ex-girlfriends, but nobody's trying to have babies somewhere. But that's not true. I think two of my ex-girlfriends tried to get pregnant. But but I digress.
I'm not asking any questions.
What do you say?
I'm not asking any questions.
I want to be real with you. I have ex-girlfriends' fake pregnancies, but I did. Listen, I'm an open book. It's going to be out there in comedy at some point. Listen, I don't think you're living in today's America unless you've had an ex-girlfriend try to get back with you by faking a pregnancy. So, one of them I hadn't seen in a month. And I said, with all due respect, shouldn't you hang up with me and call the father? That's what I told her when she said she was pregnant. Because I wasn't around. And Lord knows I wasn't involved. So unless it's immaculate, which, no. So in the world that we live in today, Notre Dame is in a place right now where if they do the ACC dirty This is going to be the longest courtship that looks like a smack in the teeth. And nobody's even going to care about what they did to the Big East when they were in the Big East for everything but football. Mind you, Notre Dame and Penn State could have saved Big East football if that all came together back in the day when Syracuse was a founding member. So we can actually look at today's realignment and say that the old Big East screwed the pooch on Penn State and Notre Dame way back when, because remember, Penn State was independent.
Yeah, and I remember UCF actually moving to the Big East for I think about 2 months, something like that, before the Catholic 8 or whatever you call them, Catholic
7, yeah.
However many, 7?
Yeah.
Okay. Catholic 7 took off, and then all of a sudden it's just, we're going to try to be the American Conference. And yeah, isn't that interesting how far back it all goes and how the lineage goes just way back?
Yeah, and how if certain moves were made way back when, we may not be sitting here at all today. But what are your thoughts on Notre Dame? Do you think they make the move? Do you think they just, listen to everybody and keep getting free dinners and, maybe they let you hold their hand, maybe they give you a kiss on the cheek at night, maybe they touch your leg, and when you touch their leg, they slap you and they say no? I mean, Notre Dame is a Catholic university, so are they going to be the traditional Catholic lady who's going to make like you're going to get a little tongue at the end of the night, but you ain't getting nothing but a peck on the cheek?
Yeah, exactly. I think Notre Dame will just kind of do their own thing like they always have. I don't think NBC would want to lose them either, because NBC has always had that deal. It's been going on for, 50, 60, 70 years. I don't even know. It's been a thing as long as I've been alive, for sure. So I couldn't imagine NBC, because they got really deep pockets, letting Notre Dame go somewhere else, or even giving them the opportunity to go somewhere else. And if they were even listening, that NBC would be like, well, we can match that plus 10% and just stay. And they will. And they always have.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, though, is what if the Big Ten goes to NBC and says, listen, we're working predominantly with Fox, but in bringing in USC and UCLA, we're going to sign a new grant of rights deal, and we'll bring our games to NBC. And we'll let you keep Notre Dame, but we'll also bring you Penn State, and we'll bring you USC, we'll bring you UCLA.
Yeah, I think the other thing with Notre Dame is that tie-in that they have. If the playoff itself stays the same, because the way the playoff reads is it could be anybody in the Power 5 or Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Is the way it's always been. And, even last year where they lost straight up to Cincinnati at home.
Yeah.
They still were getting considered to get in.
Over Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Cincinnati can thank Baylor and they can thank Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame. In Notre Dame. They beat them in South Bend by double digits. So, looking at this, and, you bring up a great point here. I've said that there's an easy way to force Notre Dame football to not be independent. There's an easy way to do it. Since Mark Emmert, who will be stepping down, I believe, in 2023, who admitted at the beginning of the pandemic he had no control over college football, which made him the president of absolutely nothing. So when he's here making statements like that, which I didn't think he had any control, but when he admitted it, I was like, okay, well, just exit stage left, and why don't we just have another leader now? But looking at the world that we're in right now, with the way that things are, there's an easy way for the College Football Playoff Committee, which functions separately from college football and the NCAA. So they're not even under NCAA rule, which means you don't even have to listen. If the NCAA suspended me as a player or a student athlete, I wouldn't listen, because Mark Emmert said I can't tell a school or a conference what to do. Well, the conference is where the school is in, and I play for the school or I coach for the school. So if you can't control the conference or the school, you can't control me, because if you can't control the big boy, you can't control me, because that's my parent. So the College Football Playoff Committee, since they have control, they can make it very easy to Notre Dame. And I said this years ago. Tell Notre Dame they can't qualify for the College Football Playoff or the National Championship if they're not in a conference. Then you'll see them join real quick. Then they'll make the phone calls they'll answer the Big Ten, the SEC, and the ACC. All you have to do with Notre Dame, who, like Disney World in Florida, gets preferential treatment as their own island. All you have to do is basically Ron DeSantis them and say, we're the College Football Playoff Committee. If you don't join a conference, you don't qualify for the College Football Playoff, and you can never win a national championship. And Notre Dame will finally not be independent. It's an easy move, and in 2025, when everything ends with the College Football Playoff's current contract, they can write in there at the time that Oklahoma and Texas are going to be moving, USC and UCLA will have moved. All you have to do is in 2026 say, from here forward, if you're not a member of these conferences, you cannot qualify.
Yeah, I mean, that'd probably be it, though. That'd be like literally the only thing you could do to definitively get them to move. Because other than that, I mean, I think you're just going to have to beat NBC financially, and that's not really going to happen.
But here's the thing. Notre Dame has been courted by the ACC. Ever since the ACC got Notre Dame with Syracuse and Pittsburgh to join them in 2013, and in their case, in all sports except for football, there's always been the notion of bringing football in and wooing them. John Swofford was the commissioner there. I respect him, spent a lot of time with him. Now you have Jim Phillips. I respect him. I've gotten to spend some time with him here in his first couple of years. Him being here in this region, he comes from the area of the country where the Big Ten is, right? He comes from the Midwest world. And with him coming in, Jim Phillips, in 2020, they say, okay, we're going to do away with divisions. We're going to have one full conference. And Notre Dame, you have to join us because we have to be in a bubble. So they get Notre Dame to sign the contract. They get them to finally go on the date. So now Notre Dame knows what it's like to date you. They know what it's like to spend time with you. They know what it's like to not have divisions. What's the ACC just secured? A 3-5-5 model and the doing away of divisions starting in 2023. So you already got Notre Dame to play in your conference. They made it to the conference championship. You got Notre Dame to sign the contract, which I know as a business person, getting them to sign once is the hardest thing. Getting them to renew there is the next hardest. And then from there, when you get them to sign once, it's easy to sign twice and so on and so forth. When you brought in Notre Dame and you got rid of divisions, you showed them what life could be like. And I thought that was a precursor to them saying, now we're not just talking to Notre Dame about it. Now they've actually lived it. They've experienced it, and they can tell us what their thoughts are. They've done away with divisions after this season in football. Does it not make sense that the ACC has done what they could to woo them, show them, get them temporarily, and now they're giving them the full conference with no divisions? Are they not setting up Notre Dame to say, listen, we're going to do exactly what you had in 2020, and now we're going to do it forever? Are they not even more publicly courting Notre Dame?
Man, I mean, they should be. They absolutely should be. Because if you look at some of the games Notre Dame has played over the last couple seasons with Clemson, some of those tight, Clemson went to Notre Dame, and that was just a slobber knocker of a football game. Yeah. Clemson ends up falling short at the end. And then Notre Dame opened the season last year at Florida State, which was just a monumental overtime game. You're in Doak Campbell. I was there.
Yeah.
You're in Doak Campbell. Bobby Bowden's just passed away. They're honoring Bobby Bowden. His wife is there. His granddaughters are there. Everybody's there.
Yeah.
The pageantry, the feeling, you got those Notre Dame fans in the building. It was crazy. Of course, I was there as a UCF fan to see Mackenzie Milton. He comes in toward the end of the game, brings them back from 17 points down, sends it to overtime. They end up falling short. Notre Dame gets the win, and a good quality win for them at that point of the season in the first week.
Yeah.
So I think they definitely would have something to gain with making their schedule harder, but it would just be making the money match up to what they get.
And the thing is again, I mean, Notre Dame can sit and wait and they can do whatever they want to do. But if you're Notre Dame, then do you go ACC because you already have that connection? Do you go Big Ten? Or do you go to the SEC and knock on Brian Kelly's door and say you can run, but you can't hide?
Yeah, I think I'd probably, the easiest route would be going the ACC or the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I think money-wise, the SEC would be the better route. But as far as like your scheduling and it not being as difficult to get to the playoff, one of the other two.
And here's the thing about the college football playoff, and I firmly believe this. I think everything now, when we were sent the email in the media and kind of like spelled out to us like what was going to happen with this college football playoff expansion, is that they were looking at 12, and in looking at 12, the conversation of how this was going to go about, they told us the route that they had to take, and I believe there was like 4 different checkpoints they had to pass. So they passed the first one, then there was some time, then they passed the second one, passed the third, and then it was like September time, and they could have signed off like after 2025, here's going to be the new plan. And then it stopped. Oklahoma and Texas make a move within that summer, and everything stops and halts. And it's stayed in a halt position in this hover pattern. And now we've seen more realignment. We've seen USC and UCLA. We're asking about Notre Dame. We're wondering about some of these other teams. I think it's fair to say that college football playoff realignment, or not realignment, college football playoff expansion paused in order to let all of these chips fall, because people don't believe this, but obviously I don't believe in coincidences. So I think when Oklahoma and Texas moved, everything paused so that they could see what it was going to do to the landscape. And then they kind of knew that there were going to be these other moves happening, and that the college football playoff was not going to make any decisions until they knew exactly where everybody was going to be and the powers that were going to last through this. That's what I think. What are your thoughts on the college football playoff, and why did it halt? Do you think it halted for realignment because they were tipped off and knew that some big moves were going to happen?
Oh, yeah. I think they definitely, the college football playoff committee itself is made up of the presidents and those in the know. Yeah. So they for sure knew something was up and something was coming. And of course, you just tipped me off. The number one thing we're not talking about is Vanderbilt. You ain't got to worry about where Vanderbilt's going. They're going to stay right there in the SEC and collect their check just to be terrible every year. South Carolina ain't going nowhere. They're going to stay SEC so they can be terrible year after year, collect their check. And all these teams that are better than them sit outside of there and just go, how do they get to be there?
Right.
Why? Because they were in the right place at the right time 100 years ago?
Maryland and Rutgers.
Same.
Maryland and
Rutgers.
Maryland and Rutgers are sitting there right now. And I've had this conversation that the ACC has to make a move. And like I said, they can't cut the head off the SEC or the Big Ten, and the heads of the Big 12 and the Pac-12 have already been cut off. So the only thing the ACC can do is show that they have some power as being a power conference by taking something. So you can take West Virginia from the Big 12 because you have Syracuse, you have Pitt, you have rivalries there, and you have the Virginias. And then you can take Maryland because they have no relevancy in the Big 10, and you can bring them back. And what I'm getting from Maryland fans and people, that want to respond specifically about Maryland is whatever I put up, when I put up something about Maryland going back to the ACC, I get this immediate, they're not going to leave the money, Dan. Well, yeah, but are they really a good member? You know what I mean? Like, Vanderbilt's not going to leave the money, but Maryland, if I'm the Big Ten, do I really want to give a check to Maryland? And if I'm going to create a tier, 2 tiers, 3 tiers, right now, if I'm going to do revenue sharing in the Big Ten and I'm going to have 3 tiers, Maryland's on the bottom. If I have 2 tiers, Maryland's on the bottom. Maryland and Rutgers don't make sense at all being a part of this conference. And I love how people respond to me going, Dan, they're there for the Big Ten money. They're not going to give up the Big Ten money. Yeah, but what if the Big Ten turned around and said, listen, you're not doing anything for our portfolio. So as we go to this new world of collegiate athletics, we don't care if you want our money. We're going to kick you out, as the Big East did to Temple.
It's what they should do. It's really what they should do. I don't understand how, for so many years, schools like them, schools like Vanderbilt, schools like Duke and anything but basketball, how they've survived in these big conferences, because they're just cupcakes. You go to a Duke football game, how many people do you think are there?
Yeah.
10,000 maybe, unless they're playing somebody of note like a Florida State or Miami.
Well, you look at basketball, they pack the place, but it's 9,000 seats in Cameron Indoor. When Syracuse packs it, it's 34 plus, 36 plus. You got 36,000. You have 4 times what it takes to pack Cameron Indoor. And if Syracuse did the smart thing and put the court in the middle, you would have 50K at a Syracuse-Georgetown, Syracuse-Duke game. So you're talking about we're selling out Cameron Indoor with 9,000 seats when Syracuse is going, we're only filling a third of the stadium. We're crunching everybody into this one nook of the stadium, and we have 36,000 people here. So even with basketball, don't talk to me about your sellout crowd, because when I go to the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight, and they're like, hey, you're at the Verizon Center for the Sweet 16, be proud of yourselves. You're part of a sellout crowd of 19,000 people in Washington, D.C., and I'm going, Syracuse gets 20,000 when we play Binghamton.
Yeah.
So everything's relative. And, I mean, to me, there is no relevancy of Duke football, right? And if you go and listen, I respect these schools and I love covering them. I have to be impartial as a broadcaster. I have to be real. And, my love and my respect for them, I love interviewing them. And if you ask me right now as a conference, okay, here are the schools besides Clemson in football. Here are the schools that actually make football interesting, and that's because they can test Clemson. Florida State used to. You have Louisville, who's had moments. You have NC State, who's been good. You have Wake Forest under Dave Clawson that has found life in football. But, your Syracuse, your Boston College, Pittsburgh has found life too. But your Syracuse, your Boston College, your Virginia, your Georgia Tech, your Duke, there's no relevancy in football for these teams. You can argue that the Coastal Division, besides Pittsburgh, the other 6 teams bring nothing to the table. North Carolina has in the last 2 years. Miami's resting on being the U of the 90s. But what have they done in the 2000s? What have they done in the 21st century? When you look at it right now, Wake Forest got a rude awakening last year that I said was coming. They were showed. Now, they lost, but in reality, they saw the writing on the wall, and Dave Clawson saw it. If your name is not Clemson, you're not going to the college football playoff out of the ACC. If Wake Forest went undefeated, they weren't going to the college football playoff. There are 4 right now. There's 4 spots in the college football playoff. Alabama, other SEC, fill in the blank that year. Clemson, when they're good, and last year they weren't. Everybody's acting like they went like 4-8. Last year when they were good but not great. But Clemson has that spot pretty much every year. And then you have a Big Ten school because your chair of the College Football Playoff Committee is in the Big Ten. And whether or not the Big Ten deserves it, they're on the jockstrap of the Big Ten. So there's nothing that's going to come out of the ACC unless it's named Clemson. And to me, when you look at the ACC, there's no viable – I mean, when the ACC – and I can see them doing away with divisions because of this. Whoever they play in the Coastal, doesn't matter. They blow them out, right? Virginia Tech gave them hell, but they embarrassed Pittsburgh. They made them look like it was a total different division of football. And Pittsburgh's good, and I like Pat Narduzzi. But in the ACC right now, you can say that besides Clemson, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 schools. So you have 14. So 9 of those schools don't have relevancy right now in college football in being a national fighter. And even with Wake Forest and NC State, I think if NC State, Wake Forest, Louisville, Pittsburgh, if they get out of their conference alive, there's still no guarantee that they're going to win their bowl game. So who is your national power besides Clemson? If you're in a conference with 1 team out of 14, then if I'm Clemson, why would I not join the SEC?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ACC itself has been waiting for Miami, for the U to be back. Yeah. And hopefully they get things going the right direction this season. Hopefully. Virginia Tech is another one. Since Beamer Ball left town, they have been just not good.
Yeah.
They've been, just right at that making a bowl game level. So these are schools that were good at the time that they moved. I mean, Virginia Tech was a top 10 school around the time that they moved. Now, not so much in football. So, it just really gets to the point where, as a fan watching it, you're like, why are they there? Why are they in that conference? How do they still get to collect the same check as all the other teams when they don't win?
Yeah. And that's the thing is, as we look at the situation with the ACC now, I mean, what can they say at this point? You're waiting, like you said, you're waiting for Miami. You're waiting for the U to come back. But let's be clear, you could be sitting here waiting on Miami, who joined you in the early 21st century, leaving the Big East. You could wait and wait and wait, and Miami could turn around, and before they turn things around, go to the SEC. Because the thing about Miami is they have no loyalty. And when Mark Richt decided after a couple seasons to hang it up and retire out of nowhere, what did they do? They called their D coordinator and said, hey, you're up in Philadelphia. The plane didn't land yet. Why don't you come back? And then he comes back after he screws over Temple. And what do they do a couple seasons later? They keep him as their sitting head coach while they're working out a deal with another person. So, the reality of Miami is they have no loyalty. So the ACC could be sitting here for over a decade waiting for them just to see them join the SEC before anything changes. And that could be another slap in the face. If Clemson goes, I think the SEC is going to go to 20. If Clemson goes, you got Clemson, you got Florida State, you got Miami. And then do you take a Virginia Tech? Do you take a North Carolina? I think the North Carolina market is good for them because the SEC's relevancy in football needs to be improved. And I think North Carolina can hang with them. So, I think you take that. Florida State's got good basketball. People don't talk about it. So, and Clemson has risen above the equator line in recent history under Brad Brownell. So, to me, I think the SEC has probably, I would venture to say, this is my opinion, not fact. I believe that the SEC has already talked to them, and I would be greatly surprised if Clemson and Florida State don't leave if they can find a way out. Because if you're Clemson or Florida State, Jay Burt, well, give me it. Give me both sides of the coin. If you're Clemson and Florida State, why would you stay in the ACC? Why would you leave for the SEC? Give me the positive, negative chart here if you're Clemson and Florida State.
Well, if I'm Clemson, I stay in the ACC because it's been Cupcake City for years, and I just waltz right into the college football playoff, having just beat like maybe Pittsburgh or somebody like that, my conference championship game by 40 points. I'd stay there for that. If I'm Florida State, I stay because I've been here forever, and this is what I'm used to doing, and this is how our schedule's always been, and we're just going to stay. And then Clemson, why would you leave? I mean, I would think a lot more money, a lot more exposure in the SEC. They could never say your schedule wasn't good enough because you do have those few teams in the SEC that you would play that are much harder than anybody in the ACC. And Florida State, I'd say same thing, except for until they get their football program going back in the right direction, which hopefully Mike Norvell is able to do.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, let's see if they give him longer than a year and a half. Well, right. Because his first year was the COVID year, so he's had 1 year since. So let's see. This would be are they going to let him actually have 2 full years that are not within an abridged pandemic year? Because they gave Willie Taggart a year and a half to change what Jimbo Fisher. I think Jimbo Fisher saw the writing on the wall and got out of there before it blew up. And I think Willie Taggart got blamed for a lot of things that weren't his fault. So Florida State, your fan base needs to understand you're not in a national championship situation right now, and you need to let somebody grow and build. Mike Norvell, I've been with him since his 4 years at Memphis. I saw everything he did there, and I interviewed him throughout the entire process. You have a good coach. Shut up and let him recruit and let him coach. I think Mike Norvell needs 3 to 4 years to see what he can do, and I hope Florida State gives it to him because what they did to Willie Taggart was dirty.
Yeah, it was very dirty, in fact. And actually, Jimbo Fisher is, as good of a coach and as good of a person as I believe he is. Jameis Winston was that once in a generational, once every 10, 20 years kind of talent that brought Florida State to prominence in 2012. when they were good, it was Jameis. He was unbelievable at Florida State, a great talent. You look back at Florida with Tim Tebow, again, a generational talent in college football, a quarterback that could not only throw, but he could just run people over on 4th and 1. It didn't matter. You were never punting on 4th down with Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what made Urban Meyer the legend that he is in college football. Those generational quarterbacks, man, they can really make a coach a lot of money and get them going, but also the guy that follows that coach usually is out of town pretty freaking quick. Look at, again, Florida, after Spurrier left, Ron Zook out the door in like 5 years, maybe not even 5 years. It happens that way every time when you have these generational talents that come through and make a coach bigger and better than he ever may have been.
Joe Burrow wins a national championship. Within 2 years, Ed Ogeron is sent out of LSU.
Yeah.
So, and mind you, he lost Joe Burrow and then he lost Jamar Chase and other players in between all of this. The SEC never gives you time to reload.
Yeah.
When you win a national championship, like I said, now that Jimbo Fisher defeated Alabama at Texas A&M, Texas A&M is going to expect him to do it every year.
Yep.
And that is not fair, considering the fact that Alabama loses 4 to 5 games in 4 to 5 years. So that's if they even do that. We'll take a step aside for another fast break inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. You're here with Jason Lucas and myself, Dan Tortora, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, having fun with you in the college realignment conversation. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544, and find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Back here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Cubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, New York. Of course, on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and inside of their corner of Route 11 and Taft Road location, which is their drive-through location at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. Head out to Cafe Cubal today. And if you're in the second home of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, which is the great state of Florida, like Jason, or you're anywhere around the country, go to cafecubal.com. That's cafe, Kubal.com. You can order from them. You can also go to wittywix.com, and you can make your studio smell pretty. I have windows wide open here right now, and these are helping my allergies. So Aubrey and the team, Aubrey, Cassie, everybody, thank you for this candle, because it not only smells good, but it's actually been the one thing that's worked for my allergies in studio. So shout out to you all for that. We're talking college realignment here. Jay Bird, I want to go to an idea that I had, and I heard somebody else talk about it after I had mentioned it. I heard somebody else say it, and I was like, cool to hear somebody on the same wavelength here. I don't believe in the Pac-12 ACC bond because it's stupid. So what I do believe in, I mean, would it be cool to see Syracuse, Oregon? Yes. But does it make any sense? No. So the reality to me is, what if the Mountain West and the Pac-12 bonded together? Now you have Utah State in Utah. You can keep Utah in that respect. You get Boise State, you get San Diego State, you get those good teams that can hang with the quote-unquote Power Five in bowl games. You get them to come in, because if we look at the Mountain West right now, this is what, they have Utah State, they have Boise State, they have San Diego State, they have Fresno State, and they've all been able to do some things here. If you're able to take that and you have Hawaii, look at where they're located. And then you have Colorado State for Colorado. So you're going to get in-state rivalries to make sense here. You're going to get Wyoming, you're going to get Idaho, you're going to get more from Utah, you're going to get New Mexico, you're going to get more from California, you're going to get Nevada, so you're going to get Hawaii. So, to me, this would make perfect sense for the Pac-10 to bond with the Mountain West and form their own mega conference over there, because what you're seeing in realignment is that the outside of USC and UCLA, you got the Big Ten in the Midwest area kind of taking that cloud. You got the Atlantic Coast mostly on the Atlantic Coast, and you got the SunBelt, the American, and the SEC living in that southern region, and then you have the Big 12 living in that southern region, going a little bit farther out than the SEC's circle. So the one part of the country that's been left wide open is the West. So in this new Louisiana Purchase style thing, why not have the Mountain West and the Pac-10 bond together? And those would create some really fun matchups that I would want to watch. Why not?
Yeah, I can't argue against that in any way. I think that they should all be together in their time zone out there and play each other till the cows come home, man. I don't think it's a good idea what's going on with UCLA. and USC. I don't believe that's a good idea at all, and I don't think it's going to work out in the end. I mean, there's just too much craziness. They're going to have to talk about kickoff times and everything else, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, two conferences that are nice and in each other's demographic, they absolutely should stay together. But I don't know about the power of it if they'd be able to be part of the playoff.
Well, and I think for me that if the Mountain West, because the Mountain West was treated like UCF of old, right? Boise State, where they're like, good job, guys. You know, you're champions. You're a big boy. And they never got to play in the game. I think that the Pac-10, because you talk about moves that need to be made for relevancy. The ACC should get West Virginia and Maryland because it makes sense for them. But their relevancy moves are Notre Dame and Clemson. And to keep the rest, they need to keep everybody and get Notre Dame. The relevancy move for the Pac's not going to do anything to the Big Ten. The Pac's not going to do anything to the Big 12. And that Pac's not going to do anything to the SEC. And it doesn't make sense for them to do anything to the ACC. So the Pac, for me, has to do something with the Mountain West because that creates value. And look at it. Colorado State and Colorado, they're both out there, and it doesn't make sense. And you could get the New Mexicos and the Nevadas. If you do that with the Pac, then all of a sudden you're taking the West Coast and the western part of the United States, and you're grabbing all of it. And now the Pac and the Mountain West, they have that entire circle. So everybody's eating this area, or they're eating this area, or they're out here on the coast. As I said, the Atlantic coast is getting pushed out. That conference is getting pushed into the water. So the move to make is the Mountain West Pac-10 move, which takes the rest of the country and puts it together, which would make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I think that for the most part, they should all stay together out there in the West. There's really no reason for any more of them to move.
Right.
I can't think of anything outside of maybe if the Big 12 decides to pull back Colorado like they used to have, which Colorado was posting things on their social media saying like, hey, Big 12, we're really, really sorry that we cheated on you. And God, if you could just take us back.
So you told me about my analogies, that it's a good analogy. I'm sorry that I went to the West Coast and followed that surfer dude, but you're my real boo. So, I mean, that's what it is. I mean, Colorado, it's like Maryland. It doesn't make sense. So just come home. But here's my thing, Jay. You know how I am. If a girl leaves and she knocks back on the door, like has happened after 15 years and 11 years, I said, call the man you're with because I'm good. So if I'm the Big 12, I'm not fielding the phone call, but the Big 12 needs to get to 16. And if Colorado, Arizona State, and Utah can get you there, listen, if I'm Oregon, I want Utah to leave because they've spoiled the last 2 years for me and any hopes of the college football playoff. But Oregon and Washington, what I don't understand about their placement is, are they really holding out for a Big Ten offer? The Big Ten offered what they consider to be your top tier. They've already slapped you in the face. So you're waiting for them to come and court you. I mean, if I'm Oregon or Washington, first and foremost, what is Washington doing? I mean, yeah, they had some relevancy and they had Mike Leach, right? But they don't have them anymore. So, I mean, what do you bring to the table? Oregon brings a lot to the table in value, and they're that other piece of the West Coast that can be viable. But if I'm Oregon and I'm Washington, I'm thinking, I didn't get the initial invite, and I didn't get an invite a week after. So maybe I'm not invited to this party. I don't think Oregon and Washington should be jockeying for anything right now. I think what they need to do is they need to get with everybody else and say, are we staying together or what are we doing? Because this, and I want to get your thoughts on it, Oregon and Washington, to me, what are they waiting for?
Yeah, I mean, what are they waiting for? Are they having conversations with the Big 12? Are they having conversations with the Pac-12 and staying? What are they necessarily doing? I was thinking about it in like, if they come into my conference, man, is that a tough place to play at Oregon. at Autzen Stadium. I've heard nothing but about how loud it is there and how hard it is to play.
Yeah.
So that's, and obviously, as you mentioned, the money, Nike, and everything that comes with all the crazy jerseys they do. So obviously a fun, hard place to play if you add them. Or, like we were talking about, if they end up deciding to stay where they're at, it's really just interesting to see what's going to happen with these schools that have been kind of left hung out to dry.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we're talking about all these schools that may need to find a home, and we're talking about the Marylands of the world that are just blessed to be where they are, and Vanderbilt blessed to be where they are, and the Dukes blessed to be where they are when it comes to football. But is Oregon, I guess the way I look at it now is I would never think this before, but is Oregon in a place right now where they're about to be a have-not, and they're about to be that team that's left out there? We talk about Oregon and Washington like they're on the same toe. They're not.
Right.
But like Oregon in basketball, they've had relevancy. They've been a number one seed in recent history. They have a court that is very, I played basketball my whole life. That court is so confusing to play on because you don't know where anything is. And it's like different shades. It should be illegal, and the Smurf turf, but I love me some Smurf turf. So when I look at Oregon, I'm going, okay, if USC and UCLA got the invite, then Oregon should have gotten an invite, and probably Stanford if you're wooing Notre Dame. And why would you wait on this wave and leave it out there? And then if allegedly the Big 12 is looking at Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado, why is nobody looking at Oregon? And if they are, it's not out there. So, did you think we'd be living in a world right now where one of the hottest sellers and one of the, big time places, and that's where Phil Knight, the creator of Nike, went to school? Why wouldn't somebody want the value of Oregon? And could they end up being in like a Pac-6 going, okay, well, I guess we're going to join the Mountain West and just hope to stay alive? I don't understand why Oregon is not one of those chess pieces right now.
Yeah, they've got to go somewhere. They've either got to go somewhere or they've got to do something with what's left of their conference. And because they've been so powerful in football for so many years, how are they left out of such a move with UCLA and USC? Like, those aren't even that great of football schools over the last 10, 15 years. If you think about it, USC hasn't been relevant since Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart were there. UCLA, since Josh McCown was there, how many years ago was that? 1998? Like, these aren't football schools that are moving into the Big Ten right now. They're just not. They're not like top 5, top 10, barely top 25, if that, either one of them. So Oregon's perennially top 15, top 10, top 5. So very interesting for them to be out there as like a free agent, so to speak. Just, hey, we're Oregon, this great school, great team, great athletic program.
Yeah.
Why aren't we invited to these bigger tables?
Yeah, and that's, I don't really understand why Oregon is the thing that's kind of just sitting out there right now. I also look at the American Athletic.
Sitting duck.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you. Pun firmly intended.
Oh,
but,
yes.
That to me it's like, I would think they have pull. I would think if Oregon says, let's keep the pack alive, that everybody's going to sit and listen to them. I would think the remaining 9 schools besides Oregon are going to have that conversation. If Oregon sits there with the pack, which what's left of it, you have Washington State, or you have Oregon State, California, Washington, Stanford. So the entire North Division is still there. You still have Utah, Arizona State, Colorado, and Arizona. I would think that Oregon has the play to sit with them and say, listen, you're not leaving. This is what we're going to do. We're going to try and take a couple teams. We're going to try and take somebody from the Big Ten, and we're going to fight with them a little bit, and we're going to try and entice somebody. They need to be on the offensive right now. And what I'm really concerned about, again, is that the Big 12 looked like it was going to die. And read my article on that. I said from almost death to wild rebirth.
Yeah.
The Big 12 looked like it was going to die. Now they can steal. The Pac-12 looked like it was going to die. Right now they do. And now they can steal. And the ACC is sitting there doing nothing. I think the Pac might actually make a move, and then we're going to look to the ACC and go, okay, so the Big 10 got stronger, the SEC got stronger, the Big 12 got stronger, the Pac-12 stayed alive, the Big 12 stayed alive, and you guys are just waiting for somebody to take someone from you. And when it comes to money, you talk about this grant of rights deal. Let's be real about this. If the SEC wants Clemson or anybody, one of the boosters is going to go, hey, I found this in my change purse. You know, I mean, they talk about this grant rights thing like it matters. We know in collegiate athletics, contracts don't matter. The transfer portal is free agency. Coaches sign 3-year deal and leave 2 months after. None of these contracts and none of this money, if it's the SEC calling you, nothing is going to stop you. And if I'm Clemson right now, I'm looking at the ACC going, and if I'm Florida State, and if I'm Miami, and if I'm North Carolina, I'm saying, listen, either you guys do something or we're going to consider walking. Because why wouldn't you? If I'm Clemson and I'm Florida State, I am most certainly taking phone calls. I am listening to all of the things that can happen for me. And I'm going to tell you something about the ACC network. It's crap, okay? I like the ACC, but I live in Syracuse, New York. And Syracuse fans have not been able to watch their team play basketball or football since the institution of the ACC network. You have to buy ESPN, and then when you're in ESPN's app, you have to buy the ACC network on top of it because it's part of the ESPN Plus and the more on top. No, my dad's not buying it. People aren't buying it. There are Syracuse fans that do not watch Syracuse athletics anymore because they refuse to pay on top of what they're already paying for cable, or they get rid of cable and they get this app. The ACC network, first and foremost, get your own app. I know it's through ESPN, but get your own app and let people pay, I don't know, $7, $8 for it. Stop disrespecting. The ACC network is a joke right now. I love the ACC. I love covering them, and I love what I was hoping that it would be. But the ACC network has spit on the Syracuse fans, as well as fans across the country. And some of these other networks have made deals where they've said, hey, our conference is going to make this deal with ESPN, but we're also going to carry local partners. So ESPN airs the games, but the local networks still get the games. So they made a deal with both that ESPN could have it, but you're not going to lose your 3, 5, and 9. Syracuse fans can't watch Syracuse games anymore, okay? It's not good enough. Syracuse football is never going to get out of the ACC alive. Basketball is not going to get out of the ACC alive. The move was made for money, but the wins aren't coming. It's not helping the university. Besides, I understand the money side of it, but it's not helping the fan base. And the ACC network, no. Clemson has no reason to stay. They have no reason to stay.
Right.
And to me right now, I want to see the ACC stay together because I like the ACC. I like covering them. And I know if Clemson goes, then it's the beginning of the end times. But ACC, I go to Jim Phillips, I sit down with you, and besides asking you why you punished Buddy Boeheim but never had a punishment and I know it's not his fault, but why did you punish Buddy Boeheim but you don't punish anybody from Duke ever, including Grayson Allen, who tripped people or had involuntary spasms at the perfect time every game? So my thing right now is, if I'm Jim Phillips and I'm the ACC commissioner, you can't sell the ACC network. You can't sell anything in football besides Clemson. You've made no moves to expand your conference, and Notre Dame is still going like this and then turning their head at the last second. What are you winning if you're the ACC? Nothing. And I think the Pac is going to make a move, and then everybody's going to go, wow, the Pac almost died, the Big 12 almost died, and the ACC has still done nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the one who's aggressive. It's the one that survives. You got to be aggressive.
I think they're going to do something. I really do.
Yeah, no, I think they're going to stay aggressive. They've been aggressive. I think they'll stay aggressive, and it'll be one of those things. The ACC just sat on their hands and was like, "Oh, we got Clemson and a bunch of others
for now."
for now, and we just hope that they want to stay with us and just beat the hell out of the teams that we have, because that way they get to the college football playoff every year, because that's what they really care about.
Yeah.
And that's really like, what other reason do they have to stay?
Well, that's the
I can't
thing.
think of any.
The Big Ten flexed on you. The SEC flexed on you. The Big 12 and the Pac-12 are fighting with each other, and the ACC is going, look at all the birds flying back and forth. You know, like, I mean, like, you have to make a decision, because in basketball, there's relevancy, but in football, there's not. And again, if you're Clemson and Florida State and the SEC is becoming this big, there's not going to be that Florida State or South Carolina Clemson game anymore unless you join the conference. So it's good for your history. It's good for your recruiting. It's good for your money. It's good for your network. You don't leave your region. The SEC doesn't mess with anything they don't already have. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense for everybody. And if I'm the ACC right now, what are you selling? Because if you're selling the ACC network, I can tell you with utter certainty that just in Syracuse, New York alone, nobody cares.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? And it's, I mean, we deal with the same thing with UCF and ESPN Plus. It's really the only way to watch our baseball games, our basketball games for the most part, and like 1 or 2 football games a year will be on ESPN Plus. So then also you got people like me who like to time up your hometown radio guy, and that gets tricky when you're on an app versus on the TV. So yeah, it's a huge frustrating situation with streaming that, I mean, it's really countrywide. If you're not one of the top 2 or 3 teams in that conference, you're always going to end up on the streaming service at some point.
Yeah, and that's why the American has offered to play games on Thursdays and Fridays, because they want to be able to showcase those games. And I commend them for that. I commend the MAC. MACtion happens on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
Yeah,
you can see, because of the MAC, some of the weeks when some of these games get moved to Monday and whatnot, you can see games 6 to 7 days a week, thanks to the Mid-American Conference. And thanks to Dr. John Steinbrecher, who joined the show. By the way, the Mid-American has 12, and they have had one of the most concrete institutional conferences where they brought in the 12. They haven't had anybody leave, and they're not looking for anybody to come in as of right now. They have stayed extremely successful in the Mid-American in recent history.
Yeah, I think UCF might be the last one that left the Mid-American Conference, because we were only there for, I think, 3 years for joining Conference USA. And yeah, I mean, Marshall was another one of those that I was like, how in the world does Marshall not move up? Like Marshall, Randy Moss, Chad Pennington, some of the studs they've had through the years. Rakeem Cato, my boy, was quarterback in the Predators, so got to shout him out. But yeah, man, what the heck? Marshall
How
is
does
one
North
of the biggest
Dakota
things
State
going.
How does the Pac-12 not call North Dakota State and say, why don't you leave the FCS? You've won 9 out of the last 11 championships. You know, and they can make a move for that right now. And with that being said, go ahead.
No, I really wonder why North Dakota State doesn't get to move up. They have NFL talent up and down their roster year in, year out, and they dominate. And obviously they play in a place that's loud, a place that could be a 1A venue anytime.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of changes and different things happening. We'll talk with Jay Bird about how I feel NCAA FBS football will actually split and become multiple levels. What does that mean for the FCS? What does that mean for D2 and D3? We'll talk about all that, as we might finally get ESPN 8 the Ocho, because we may have 8 divisions. We'll talk about that right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbeeville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jim Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if they don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Kubal studios. Cafe Kubal, born and raised here in central and upstate New York, and you can now get them anywhere you are by going to cafekubal.com. That's cafe, Kubal.com. And of course, very happy to have them on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, as well as 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse. And you can find them on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and in their drive-thru on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. You see that we've decked out the studio and added a bunch of things. Shout out to my girl Christy Martin here, 49 victories, and just got inducted into the Boxing Hall of Fame here in Canastota. So big shout out to Christy for all that she's done. Also survived domestic violence within her home, was shot and stabbed and found a way to be alive today. She's the coal miner's daughter. She has an incredible story. And she signed my Everlast gloves, which are fitting because she has been everlasting. We have that in here, a lot of other things. And of course, our 315 signs and our Syracuse signs brought to you by Witty Wicks, as well as the candle that is making everything smell so good. So when realignment makes you want to cry, you can light a candle. When it makes you want to smile, you can light a candle. And when you think your conference is dying, you can light a candle. So a lot of different ways to light a candle, and here we are to do that for you. Conference Realignment Talk. Jay Bird, Jason Lucas here with me, and has been inside of the front office of teams, and it has also been on the media side. So he has a great angle on sports, always gives great conversation here on the show. Jason, with the SEC to 16, and I think more, I think they're going to form their own league and playoff. And then we have the joint alliance, which obviously is very loose since the Big Ten cut off the head of the Pac-12, who is their buddy, and the ACC is still there. The Big 12 was left out, but they're still alive. And now they're looking up at the joint alliance going, you guys thought I was going to die. Now I'm going to come and potentially kill you, Pac-12. So what are your thoughts on Division I AFBS? We have a little bit over 130 schools right now. Does this become multiple divisions within the FBS? Do 130 plus leave the NCAA, since the NCAA has already said they have no control over it? And do they just form their own? And then the NCAA is there with the FCS Division II and Division III. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this could get really crazy because, we already kind of felt like with the Power 5 and the Power 6 and the Group of 5 or whatever you wanted to call it, we already feel like it kind of happened. But if the NCAA decides we're just going to step aside, things could get crazy. I mean, between teams going wherever they want to go, players going wherever they want to go, NIL getting out of control, which it already a little bit is. So, yeah, I mean, the whole landscape of college sports is getting ready to be. I mean, if you're a college sports fan in any kind of way, you better be ready for change. That's all I can really say. You better always be ready for your team to be in a different conference, division, whatever it may be, over the next rest of your lifetime.
Yeah.
You better be ready for change.
You know, and you bring up UCF. I mean, people don't understand that it's like they've made like 100 moves. You know, they've been in so many different conferences. And, you know, Syracuse was independent. Then they were a founding member of the Big East. Now they're in the ACC. And so, you know, and then there was that like overlap of what is this going to look like? So, I mean, there's been a lot of moves. You know, Louisville's been on the move. We have seen Conference USA constantly rated, then reloading, and, you know, having FBS teams, having FCS teams move up, having D2 teams move up. Conference USA they're losing 9. I think they're gaining 4. So, you know, I mean, this world of realignment continues. It's been going on. I mean, we dated it back when we did the show with Papa Joe that you can go back and check out on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. We did the history of when South Carolina left the ACC, and it was like 1971. So we're talking about 50 years of realignment and reclassification. So to you, Jason, in your crystal ball, how do you see college football? Who's in the playoff? What is it? Who's playing who? What do you think these 10 conferences become that are currently the FBS? How does it break up? Give me your blueprint of the future of college football.
I see like eventually the SEC and the Big Ten kind of breaking off into their own level and creating just a championship game that's between the two of them. Why do I say that? Because back in the day when there were bowl games with conference tie-ins, those were the two that were tied into each other, I think, the most. Between like the Citrus Bowl, the Outback Bowl, I could probably name a few others if I really sat here with a list. Those two conferences played each other all the time. They have the most money. Those two are going to break off and be together. And then everybody else is just kind of going to be left to play for whatever. And you're gonna choose a school based upon, well, either we want a shot at the national championship or we don't, and we're just going to go to this school and show ourselves on TV as much as we can to get to the NFL.
So I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be 3 different playoffs. I think in Division I, you're going to have the SEC alone or with the Big Ten. And then I think you're going to have everybody else. I think you're going to have the rest of the conferences that are currently in the FBS. And in that case, I think you're going to have the American, you're going to have the ACC, you're going to have the Big 12, you're going to have Conference USA, you're going to have the Mid-American, the MAC, you're going to have the Mountain West, the Pac-12, if they bond or whatever. And then I think you're going to have the SunBelt, and the rest of them are going to form their own playoff. And I think that playoff is going to be like the FCS. And I believe it's somewhere around 16. And they're going to say, hey, idiots, like we did this for how long and now you're going to copy us. And then I think the FCS is just going to, watch the storm happen from inside of their dome and go, wow, that thunder and lightning looks dangerous. And that rain looks heavy and that tornado, but we're inside of this bubble. So I think, we're going to see 3 divisions within Division 1 right now. And we're going to see, I guess, call it Division 1A, AA, AAA. And it's SEC or SEC and Big Ten. Then it's the rest of those conferences that are currently within Division 1A FBS. And then the FCS will continue to function and do their thing. And then D2 and D3. I think that's how it goes. I think the SEC is looking at having their own league. I don't know how the SEC doesn't argue that they deserve to have their own playoff, because there's been years where I argued that the college football playoff could have been all 4 SEC schools, if not 6. Yeah. So, I think they function alone. I think the Big Ten getting Notre Dame makes that interesting. But ultimately, I think the SEC and the Big Ten can write their own history. And I think everybody else is going to have to play together in an expanded playoff. And then, the FCS will be the FCS. But I don't see a world where the SEC and the Big Ten don't start doing their own thing, either together or separate.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with that. That's pretty much the only thing that can happen at this point to make it even more change. But the SEC, being that, autonomy that it's been for so many years, where it always got 2 teams in the playoff, now it'll just have its own, and everybody else, good luck.
Yeah, and I think that's where we're sitting at right now. I think it's going to be a situation where the SEC, we'll call it shots. They're still bigger than the Big Ten. And, I think the Big Ten's got to figure out what they want to do with their life and go from there. And then I think everybody else is going to watch and have to join together. What I find funny is people want to knock the American and the SunBelt, but outside of Clemson, ACC, what do you have? And by the way, and I'm talking about wins and losses. I'm not talking about the fact that Florida State and Miami and UNC and Duke don't have pull as brands, but you're going to have 14. You have 14 schools. The SunBelt and the American have 14 schools.
Yeah.
So, you have the same amount of schools, and the American has gone into your region. The SunBelt has gone into your region. They're in Florida. They're in the Carolinas. They're in your world. So, I think the ACC, again, the worst action is inaction right now. And ultimately, I think, people say, well, Syracuse left the Big East so that they could be part. Well, guess what? The ACC could end up in a world where they have to have rivalries and bowl games with the American Athletic Conference. And now all of a sudden, was it the right move? Because the American got bigger and the Americans working on their network and doing what they can do. And the American Athletic Conference would have been a great fit for Syracuse because they would have still been relevant in football and basketball.
Yeah, 100% they still would have been, because it's a pretty competitive basketball and football conference no matter what.
Yeah, so ultimately, you look at the Big 12, you're getting Houston, who's a Final Four team, a championship caliber basketball team, and you're getting Kelvin Sampson. UCF, you're getting, a great coach in Gus Malzahn. You're getting a storied program that found their growth in the last decade and, in their life inside of the American Athletic. And with Cincinnati, you're getting a team that's a college football playoff worthy team, and UCF was a few years back for a couple seasons. So, there's a lot of good value that's coming in, and ultimately at the end of the day, I'm
I get it.
And I'm excited to see what can happen from here. I'm actually very happy that my nieces get shameless screen time here for Gracie and Carly. So
All right.
None from Gracie. She's bashful today. So shout out to my nieces, Gracie and Carly, and to my nephew up in heaven as we celebrate his life that will always be with us in his life force in Mr. Carter James. So with that being said, Jason, thank you for being a part of it. Any final notes that you have?
Man, just shout out to my boy Carter. It's his death anniversary today, and we miss him and we love him, and we'll see him in the afterlife.
And we call it a Remembrance Day here to celebrate the life of Carter James and to celebrate Gracie and Carly. So with that being said, Jason, thanks for being a part of the show, and I always look forward to having you back on soon.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, Salsa Q's, Syracuse Salt, and Chocolate Pizza Company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus.
Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora inside of the Cafe Kubal studios, hanging out with you where sports meets that thing called life, and always happy to be here with you on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So happy to have you here inside once again of our Cafe Kubal digs. Cafe Kubal on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street. That's all in Syracuse. You can also find them on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners, which is right there in North Syracuse, New York. Their drive-through location in their one-year anniversary. And, of course, on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius. You can't miss it. Giant brown behemoth of a building, and beautifully right there for you. So make sure you head out there to 343 Fayette Street in their double-decker cafe. I call it the Welcome Center to Manlius because where all the roads converge to go into Manlius, you see it right there, right in front of you. So make sure you head off to Cafe Kubal today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. very happy inside of monpazpopcorn.com's What's Poppin' to talk realignment with my guy Jason Lucas. And now it's time every Tuesday as we round out the show to bring you the ingredients to success. The ingredients to success proudly presented by Avicoli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. Of course, drink responsibly. They have indoor and outdoor seating. They have their casual pizza side. They have their fine dining, and they have their bar. So there's multiple ways to enjoy their fantastic restaurant with great food, great service, great people. Shout out to John and Nick and the entire team. Cannot thank Avicoli's enough. We're there every single month bringing you our Liverpool Warriors exclusive sit-down broadcast with administration, as well as coaches and student athletes. We'll be there later on this month, and I'm very excited, as always, to be on site on location at Avicoli's, which is right down the road from Liverpool High School, minutes from the high school. So make sure you head out to Avicoli's today, your trusted neighbor for decades in Liverpool, New York. So Avicoli's, you can go to myavicoli's.com as well. And of course, for takeout, delivery, and catering, you can call 315-622-5100. So with that being said, the ingredients to success for today. My ingredients, I have to pick a topic, and then we talk about what the ingredients are to success. Well, I guess today's topic would be finding God, right? Because we, on my show, I'm very open about my faith, and I'm very open about the fact that I appreciate people of all faiths. So, whether you have a faith, you don't have a faith, you don't know what your faith is, you're always welcome here on the show. And as I welcome you, I ask for that mutual respect of welcoming my faith, because I talk about my faith openly, and I respect people that do as well, and not trying to force it on anybody. It's just who I am to talk about it. So today's topic for the ingredients to success, I'm going to say, is finding God. And, I think I found God a long time ago because I always knew God. And I've always had a special relationship with God. And I don't really know how to describe it other than the fact that it just is there. And in having this relationship with God, I talk with God all the time. And how do I find God? Well, I'm in a process right now of refinding God. And what I mean by that is, sometimes we get lost in the grand scheme of things. Sometimes we get caught up in what's going on. And, I think that we have to take a step back, and really discover who we are and what we are and what we're about. My relationship with God is a strong bond. It's always been that way. And I find that when I let earthly things take control of my feelings and my thoughts, that I lose my focus on God. So how do you find God again? Well, you pray. I think the other thing is, you do the things that make you you. When you're looking for God, when you're looking for, you feel like that connection's been shaken by something, then, I would say my best advice to you is to think about, before it was shaken, what were you doing? Were you meditating? Were you praying? Were you listening to music? Were you writing? Were you drawing? Were you playing a sport? Were you cleaning? There's different things that people do that help us to shut our brains off. I don't think when I clean. I don't think when I play basketball. I just let it be. When I'm singing, I'm my best, just like with basketball, when I shut my brain off and just let my spirit, uplift me and let my spirit go. And so find that thing that works for you. Find that light that works for you in helping you to get there, right? Helping you to find that place. Because, to me, it's, you have to find, when you're looking for God, you have to essentially also be looking for yourself. And it's not always an easy thing to do, to find oneself, right? And I think it takes some time to find yourself. And so I would implore you, in finding God, to do the things that you were doing when you felt like you were close to God. And, celebrate your life. Say thank you. I find that I get really calm, when I'm looking to reset my battery. I get very calm. I get very simplistic, and I look at the things that put a smile on my face, and I find that peace and that zen, right? I can bring myself back. And I think that finding God, especially in today's world, I think if you're looking for God in material things, you're never going to find it. If you're looking for God in the news, you're never, more often than not, you're not going to find it. I think you find God by having that peaceful time to yourself. And, as people say, well, Dan, I work too much, I can't. Well, that could be the problem why you don't feel close to God. If you're working your life away, then you're diminishing yourself and you're kind of excommunicating yourself from this goodness, right? From this give and take. And we all need that, right? I think some of us think we don't need to eat, we don't need to sleep, we don't need to take time for ourselves, we don't need to take an hour, we don't need to pray, we don't need to listen to music, we don't need to calm ourselves down, and then you get sick, and I think with God, he really genuinely comes to you and kind of just says, hey, and gives you that little jolt. And, I know he does with me, when I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not sleeping, I'm just work. I'll get sick, and I wouldn't get sick for a couple of days. I'd get sick for like weeks. And it was God making me reset. It was God saying, I wanted you to rest and you didn't. I asked you to sleep and you didn't. I asked you to take care of yourself and you didn't. So now I'm going to make you take care of yourself. And, I know people that even when God does that, they still don't take care of themselves. And, I call those lost souls because, getting sick or feeling off, that's really, to me, it speaks to me, right? And if my body physically feels like, wow, this stress is manifesting, I'm too stressed, I'm too tired, I'm too, wound up about this, that you have to find your peace. And my peace is God. And I know, some people might turn to a bottle, might turn to drugs, might turn to being loose in the streets, and those things will never, I think the things that come easy go just as easily. And I think that when you have those temporary highs, they're exactly that, temporary. And you have to stay with them at all times because you can't. And I knew I knew a few people that drank to the point where they just didn't want to feel anything. And, eventually the alcohol wore off and they felt it again. And knowing them and then knowing them 7-8 years later, they were still in pain because they were only temporarily masking the pain, but they weren't doing the work to get rid of that pain. And I think, today's topic in the ingredients to success presented by Avocolis and finding God is to find, those, to put the work in, right? To find that it's not easy to get back, you think about it. I mean, I think people go in the wrong direction for so long, and then they want to spend 5 minutes and be in the right direction. And they look up at God and go, well, you obviously don't exist because I asked you to bring me back and you didn't. And God's going, well, you went 5 years in the wrong direction and now you want me to turn you back in 5 minutes. I think God can do anything. But what's the point in creating human beings? What's the point of creating life in general and giving it free will if God could just move us around like puppets, and if we were going in the wrong direction could just turn us around and put us in the right direction? I pray for guidance, and I pray for, to guide and guard me and everybody. And, I think that without adversity we don't grow. So how do you find God? I think you listen. I think you have to get quiet. I think you have to you really, really just allow yourself to breathe and be. Because I think in the world, especially nowadays, things are always so quick that we don't stop. And I think that's the problem in losing, God, is that you're not listening, right? You're not listening. And so often people push away They complain that they want their life to be good and peaceful and positive and loving, but they push away the good and peaceful and positive and loving people. And that's a typical thing that I've seen. When people are hurting, I've done this. When you're hurting, you get alone, right? When you should surround yourself with love, you push it away. And then you feel even more alone. And I think, when somebody doesn't love you, you forget about all the people that do. You're focused on, well, then this isn't here. But what about the people that do? And I've been on both sides of the coin where I pushed away people that love me because I wanted somebody to love me who didn't. And then I've also been the person going, hey, I love you. Like, why isn't that good enough for you? I know that this person doesn't treat you right, but I love you. And so why aren't you here with me? And, over the last few weeks, I feel the loss of more than one thing. And, it's the reality of sometimes you love things far greater than they love you. And when you do that, it causes immense pain, but it also causes you to reflect and say to yourself, my sin is love. That's not a sin. And so, I think the sin is the one that took advantage of that. But when you love something, when you love somebody, it's a beautiful, God is love and love is God. And I actually did an entire thing about God's love. And so if God is love, then when you're loving somebody, you are finding God. You're finding the presence of God. And I think that, to me, it is entirely possible in this life to get overworked and overstressed and lost. But when you love, you are showing that you've reached a place in life that is hard to attain when you can love something outside of yourself and you can give to it and you can believe in it and you can hope in it. And when you give love to something, when you give love to someone, you are giving the greatest gift that there is. And I think, in finding God, we think in those moments where our love is attacked and it's hurt and it's confused, we feel that there is no God. But we've already shown God to ourselves by loving. And so the irony is we're looking for God, but God's right there. God is within us. And I want people to know that, because I know a lot of people that have loved and lost. And I ask you, what have you lost? And what I mean by that is when somebody passed away, you don't lose them, right? They love you and you love them. But when somebody decides living to leave you, be it a friend, be it romantic, be it a family member, somebody in your blood, when somebody decides to not be a part of your life anymore, we feel that we've lost. And I ask you, what have you lost? Because my friends that I thought were true friends that walked away, I don't miss them. And sometimes I have to sit back and remember what they look like, because it's a distant memory of something that I thought it was and it wasn't. And when I look romantically back on things, and I know I make jokes here on the show, but we've all gone through pain, some of us tremendous pain. And, what have I learned from relationships that didn't work out? If they were still going on, who would I be today? If I was still married to the person I was married to, how much worse could I have felt of myself? And, so it's like we think about what we've lost, right? When I leave a job or a boss lied to me and didn't do what they said they were going to do and they hired me, what are you losing? We talk about we have this giant pile of things that we've lost, but what did you lose? You lost people who don't respect you, don't love you, don't sit with you, don't ask how you are, don't care. In the grand scheme of things, those that walk away and stay away, they never really cared and they never really loved you. Because everything that I love in my life, I hold on to greatly and very tightly, And do I always agree with my parents? No. But do I let go of them? Do I ever say, I don't want to have them? No. I love my parents, and I love my grandparents. I love Lily. Does Lily always, do the right thing? No, Lily's gotten in trouble, but have I ever stopped loving her? No. And has she ever stopped loving me? No. And I think, my true friends, my truest of friends, and one thing you'll realize with friends and relationships in general is that time means nothing. Right? You could spend 7 years with somebody, and if they don't treat you right, it's not like, well, I've spent 7 years with them, so I might as well. Because that's what settling comes in, right? I'm not going to find a new best friend because I've been best friends with this person for 10 years. Well, but how do they treat you, right? How you are treated by somebody should be the only litmus test, right? It should be the only criteria, how you're treated. Because ultimately, how somebody treats you is how they make you feel. And how somebody makes you feel, that lasts with you, right? Anybody can tell you that they love you, right? This is where I feel like people, when you don't have God, you're constantly searching. And God is love. And if you had God, then you would have some direction. When people are constantly chasing love and chasing hearing it, somebody telling you that they love you, anybody could say that. Anybody could say that. You know how many times people told me they love me? Friend, family, romantic. Do you know how many people meant it? It's always a smaller percentage than the people that said it. And, I think you have to look at how you're treated. And you have to reflect on how you're treated. What is your day-to-day life like? And do you get out what you put in? And I'm not saying to do things to get something. I'm saying relationships are give and take, right? When I work in a business partnership, it's give and take. If I feel like they're taking from me and that's it, or, I would never let them feel like I'm taking from them because I can't do that. I can't live that way. But if I felt somebody was just abusing me, I have felt that way, and I don't work with them anymore. And in friendships where I felt like, wow, I'm making everything possible. What I've realized in relationships is if you, and this is friendship, romantic, whatever, family, if you see somebody, but you only see them because of you, right? You call them, you text them, you set up the schedule, and you go see them. I have taken myself back before and said, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be the one that schedules everything, and I'm going to see what happens. And my best friend growing up disappeared for 14 years, because I stopped calling him, and I stopped reaching out to him, and I stopped scheduling things with him, and I stopped working around his schedule. And I was like, okay, let's see if he cares about me. Let's see if he misses me, and let's see, if we really are brothers, and he'll really put the effort in, and he didn't. So, I think that's what I learn about life. A person that calls you once and doesn't leave a message and goes, well, I tried. No, they didn't. And somebody who, shoots you a text message every once in a while and makes you and knows that silence bothers you, they're not there, and I think these ingredients to success, you have to look at how people treat you, because life could end today. It could end today. I had a dream last night that there was an alien attack. Way too vivid for me. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was like, God, please don't let me go back into this dream. I can't. I don't know what I provoked to make this dream happen, but please don't let me go back there. And when I look back on that dream and I look back on that time, I remember thinking to myself, like, I was coherent enough to say, what if this was the end, right? Am I dating the right person? Is the right person my best friend? Have I reached out to this family? Have I reached out to these friends? Have I done everything I could with what I love? Because that dream put me in that place of like, if it's all from those instances, right? And I feel compelled to say this today because it comes from the heart, So many of us are treated so poorly and we accept the behavior. And I don't want that for me. I don't want that for you, to accept the behavior. If somebody loves you, you don't have to beg them to stop hurting you. And you definitely don't have to beg them twice. Okay? If somebody loves you, they will come to you. they will be with you. Okay? This whole like jockeying and chess game and I'm not going to move, so if he doesn't move, I'm not going to, or if she doesn't move, I'm not. No, eventually, if somebody deeply loves you, they eventually put their ego aside and they come to you. Because if they really love you, they can't live without you. And I'm in the world of can't live without yous, right? I can't live without God. And there's relationships that I value so much that I won't let go of, you know. Being a good father to Lily is really important to me. And I don't let go of that. So, you know, I think it would be to really reflect on if you have found God. Do you have a faith? Do you have a place where love is eternal and springs eternal? And from that spring, do you mirror your relationships to that? Would you want God to treat you the way that somebody's treating you right now? Is your boss treating you with compassion? Is your boss treating you with love and understanding? Is your mom, is your dad, is your best friend, is your wife, your husband, your partner in crime, your significant other, you know, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your fiance? If you're not treated with love and compassion and kindness and trust and honesty and goodness, then you're not being treated well. And I think that the unfortunate part of life is people focus on when somebody does something wrong, not everybody, but when some people do things wrong and they get, right, you do something negative and you get a negative response and they focus on the negative response. Well, I'm not talking to you because you did this, but it's like, yeah, but you provoked this to happen. You know, if you punch somebody in a bar and then somebody hits you back, you might call all your friends, or you wouldn't believe this jerk that punched me. Well, you left out the fact that you provoked it. So, you know, violence only begets more violence, and negatives should not, I mean, two negatives don't make a positive. I'm just saying, in life, you really need to understand that sometimes you are the bad guy and you need to fix it. And when you don't, that speaks to your lack of care for that relationship. And that person will see that and will eventually walk away, I hope. And because they don't deserve that. And I think nobody wants to be the villain, but sometimes you are, right? Sometimes I talk back to my parents and I look back on it and I'm like, you know, you go to your room and you're upset, and then you go downstairs and you go, Mom, I shouldn't have said that. You know, I shouldn't have said that to you. And, or Dad, you know, I didn't mean that. Or you call up your friend and you go, you know what, I'm sorry I was late. I know that really affected you, and I know that really hurt your feelings, and I want you to know I respect you. So, you know, I mean, I've had people in relationships where you're dating and they say horrible things to you, and you hold back, and then, you know, after a bunch of stuff, you finally flip and you say something horrible back. And then I've even said, hey, listen, I'm not going to apologize for being upset. I'm not going to apologize for being hurt, but I shouldn't have said that. You know, I shouldn't have called you that name. And I think that, you know, you really have to look at how you're treated, because the people that love you should bring out the best in you. And when they don't, then, you know, there's a problem. And I think, you know, the ingredients to success in finding God is really looking at how you're surrounding yourself and what you're surrounding yourself with, and who is your God in your life. If you don't have God, then who are you making your God? You know, if you're making it a human being, that's not good. If you're making it a material thing or a place, it's not good. You know, God is none of those things, right? And God is everything. And I think that if we put our happiness outside of ourselves, that's what I'm saying, making somebody else God. If you put that happiness on something, okay, you put your happiness on a ride. I love Mount Everest at Disney. I love Expedition Everest. What if it closed? So then my happiness is gone, right? You put your happiness into the person that you're dating and they break up with you. Then what happens to you? You become miserable, depressed, stay in bed all day. You know, you put your happiness into your job. You lose your job. Do you know, become somebody who doesn't want to live? You know what I mean? Your happiness has to come from inside. That doesn't mean you don't enjoy your job. It doesn't mean you don't love. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means that your love comes from within, and you have to love yourself before you can love anything else. And when you don't love yourself, then you make a lot of mistakes. And you're still going to make mistakes in life when you do love yourself, but they're not going to be as grandiose. And, you know, I think you really have to reflect on finding yourself and finding God. And in my world, in my book, the only way to find myself is to find God. So meditate, pray, think, laugh, surround yourself with good stuff, watch your favorite movies, listen to your favorite music. Do what you did when you were okay. And if you can't remember a time you're okay, well, then make today be the day that you start to be okay. Just be calm. You know, I know it's hard in today's world, but just be calm. Shut it off. I love music, but yesterday I just needed calmness. I shut everything off. My car was silent. I didn't watch TV last night. My TV was silent. I just needed calm, peace, so that I could think clearly. And you'd be amazed at what that can do for you. So find your peace today. Let me know how you're doing. You need anything, send us a message. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, Instagram at Wake Up Call _DT. Hey, I'm here for everybody because that's what I want to do, right? I want to be here for you. So thank you for watching and listening every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, where sports meets that thing called life. Very happy to be here with you. And so on youtube.com, facebook.com, and mixlr.com, all / Wake Up Call DT, on facebook.com / live now DT, and on wakeupcalldt.com. You're watching and listening worldwide every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Once the show goes live, you can find us in the archives. You just added a bunch of shows to the archives. Make sure you search that today. Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, YouTube, MixLR, Audible, Amazon Music, and more. All you have to do to find us is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on any one of these outlets, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Proud thanks to all of our Central and Upstate New York partners and beyond. Want to give a thanks to every single one of you and shoot you out beautiful, congratulations on everything that you've done. I shoot my love. Just definitely, the fireworks of, we're here in July. So, these are the companies that really are the guiding lights. Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Victory Sports Medicine Orthopedics, Millhouse Market, Honda City of Liverpool, Witty Wicks, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicero, and Chick-fil-A Clay, and Mother's Cupboard, and of course Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It is Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We have a few weeks off here, but the Dolphins are here with us throughout the year. On Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is Dolphin Time. Every first and third Wednesday of each month, you have the AD and DT episodes with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora, giving you the topics of the times, including the fact that we were the exclusive show that released the fact that Lemoyne is looking at reclassification and realignment, potentially going to Division I. So you definitely want to check that out. It is on our Twitter feed at CallDT. On the top, it's our saved broadcast. You can also find that and so much more on the Lemoyne tab of wakeupcalldt.com and on youtube.com / wakeupcalldt. Click subscribe. On those avenues, you also find our Dolphin Dive episodes with student athletes, administration, coaches, future Dolphins, and alumni. And all you have to do is be with us there on YouTube or on the Lemoyne tab of wakeupcalldt.com. And, of course, be with us live Wednesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. For more information on your Dolphins, go to LemoyneDolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your Marywood University Pacers. It is Pacer Pride all day, as I am a proud alum of Marywood University. You'll catch the Pacers with us weekly, typically on Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I say typically because we're doing a special with Executive Director of Athletics Pat Murphy tomorrow on-site on location at Marywood University. So we'll see you a couple days early, but typically on Fridays at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Once the shows go live, you can find them in the archive by going to the Marywood tab on wakeupcalldt.com, bookmark it, save it, and keep it for yourself. And of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, for these stories from student athletes as well as coaches and administration. For more information on your Marywood Pacers, go to marywoodpacers.com. The Bryan and Stratton College Bobcats of Syracuse are here with you in the Bobcat Buzz in our exclusive multimedia marketing partnership with Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse. The Bobcat Buzz comes to you every single month. Student athletes, administration, and coaches joining the broadcast, making history with us as the Bryan and Stratton Bobcats get a spotlight on them to showcase all of their sports. Men's and women's soccer, which have won national championships, men's and women's basketball, which have made it to the national tournament, and the new program coming to us in baseball, as well as what they're doing with esports. So very happy to have the Bobcat Buzz. You can check out our library of Bobcat Buzz specials by going to the BSC SYR tab on wakeupcalldt.com. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. And of course, for more information on your Bobcats, go to syracuse.bscbobcats.com. The Bobcat Buzz, here with you every single month. And with that being stated here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, I want to thank you for being a part of the show inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. Cafe Kubal on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in their drive-through location of North Syracuse, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and of course their Syracuse locations on 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street. You could also go to cafekubal.com if you're out of town and support local. Made here, stays here, and we love everything that they bring to the table, especially their chai. cafekubal.com. Check it out. Thanks to Witty Wicks for decking out our studio and making everything smell oh so pretty. Windows wide open, baby. This thing is about halfway through, and like I said, Aubrey, the team at Witty Wicks in Township 5 in Camillus, go and see them right in front of the movie tavern. Let's make a colossal candle. And can we test it with windows wide open? Because I just need like a giant bucket of a candle right here, because this thing's lit every day. So make sure you check out all of their stuff, their 315 signs, their Q signs 315, and make sure you check out our social media, as I'll be airing their local wall that they have at Witty Wicks. So make sure you check that out in Township 5 in Camillus. You can also shop at wittywicks.com. We're going to be showing just how local they are, including the fact that they carry Ma and Pa's kettle corn. So we'll check that out in the video coming up here on our social media. Facebook at Wake Up Call DT. This is the Twitter at Call DT. And Instagram at wakeupcall_DT. Thanks to Jason. Thank you to